5 years have passed and Tai Xuan Sect is no longer the same, with Sword Venerable Fu Dao's name shaking the Nine Dynasties. Powerful cultivators, hidden geniuses, and ambitious factions are beginning to gather around Tai Xuan Sect. But fame brings more than admiration. A legendary sword cultivator arrives to challenge Fu Dao. Wuju's terrifying potential begins to awaken. Li Ya and An Hao step onto a path that may decide who truly deserves to stand at the peak of the younger generation. And beneath it all, Guan continues to hide his real strength, while uncovering secrets connected to the Epiphyllum Cult, an ancient immortal king, and a mysterious power that even he refuses to touch. The Golden Ranking Tournament is about to begin, and this time, the entire cultivation world is watching. Welcome to episode 13. And Hao's Taichung Divine Shocking Sword Intent shook the entire Tai Xuan Sect, setting countless disciples abuzz. The sword intent lingered for several hours before finally fading away. Over the next few days, all kinds of rumors spread. The only thing anyone could say for certain was that the terrifying pressure had come from a sword intent. As a result, more and more sword cultivators began gathering at Heaven Mending Platform. Guan's days, meanwhile, remained peaceful. He moved between his 3 medicine valleys, occasionally visited Zhuanshan Cave abode at night, and spent the rest of his time simply enjoying life. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. Guan was now 62 years old. Only now did news of Sword Venerable Fu Dao, destroying the great demon of the Epiphyllum Cult, truly spread throughout the cultivation world. Whenever Guan visited the outer sect, he could hear people discussing it. Sword Venerable Fu Dao had already become widely recognized as the greatest sword cultivator in the Taikang dynasty. Some even called him the strongest cultivator under heaven. One afternoon, Guan stood at the edge of Heaven Mending Platform, looking up at a stone statue 1,000 feet tall. He was in an excellent mood. The towering statue was none other than an idol of Sword Venerable Fu Dao. It had been sculpted after the appearance Guan took while using the 9 extremes yin-yang body. Demonic aura blazed around the figure like flames. One hand pointed diagonally toward the heavens while the other gripped a sword, giving the statue an overwhelmingly domineering presence. Guan was not the only one admiring it. More than a dozen people stood nearby, all looking up and talking among themselves. Hearing their reverent praise of Sword Venerable Fu Dao made Guan feel even better. Who would not want their name to shake the world? Guan was no exception. He merely feared that others might discover his lifespan-stealing ability, so he had always kept a low profile. But becoming famous under another identity still satisfied a small part of his vanity. Sword Venerable Fu Dao certainly deserves to be called the greatest sword cultivator in the Taichung dynasty. But the greatest sword cultivator under heaven? That may be going too far. The voice immediately caught Guan's attention, and many nearby disciples turned as well. The speaker was a man in blue robes holding a folding fan. He carried himself with refined ease. His handsome face remained completely calm, as though the outrageous statement had not come from his mouth at all. A broad-shouldered intersect disciple looked toward him and asked in a deep voice, "Oh? Then enlighten us. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest sword cultivator under heaven?" By now, Sword Venerable Fu Dao had become the pride of every disciple in the Tai Xuan Sect. None of them were willing to tolerate anyone questioning his status. The blue-robed man replied, "In the far west, within Tianwei, there is a sword cultivator known as Daoist Heavenly Sword. 700 years ago, he was already the greatest sword cultivator in Tianwei. After that, he secluded himself deep in the mountains and devoted himself entirely to comprehending the Sword Dao. Not long ago, a tremendous sword intent erupted in Tianwei, proving that he is still alive. Had Sword Venerable Fu Dao not acted so quickly, the one who ended the Epiphyllum Cult might very well have been this senior instead." Tianwei was one of the 9 dynasties and lay at the extreme western edge of the region. It suffered invasions from demons and monsters year after year, yet its territory was still even larger than Taichung's. That alone spoke volumes about the strength of Tianwei. Guan sensed that this man was concealing his cultivation. On the surface, he appeared to be merely in the core formation realm. But in truth, he had already reached the divine transformation realm. Guan quietly used his lifespan detection ability. Seize Divine Transformation Realm, 2nd layer. 289 800 1300. He was hiding his cultivation while openly praising a cultivator from Tianwei. He clearly was not an ordinary disciple of the Tai Xuan Sect. One said nothing and simply watched as the surrounding disciples verbally besieged Xianxia. Xianxia remained as calm as drifting clouds and flowing water. No matter how the crowd cursed or mocked him, his expression barely changed. Daoist Heavenly Sword was indeed powerful and once shook the world with his name. But that was long ago. You are a prince of the Tianwei imperial family, bearer of the fire god bloodline, yet you come to the Tai Xuan Sect and deliberately provoke us. Are you trying to start a war? Another voice rang out. Everyone turned and saw Han Ming, the sword maniac of Great Yu, striding toward them. CJ turned, cupped his hands, and said, "So it is Senior Sword Maniac. I heard that Senior has remained at the Tai Xuan Sect for many years. Could it be that you intend to join the sect?" He smiled, his tone gentle, yet every word somehow made people want to punch him. Boy, if I had not once received a favor from your imperial father, you would already be a corpse. Do you really think your divine transformation realm cultivation could withstand even one strike from me? Han Ming snorted coldly. Divine transformation realm. The faces of the disciples who had been insulting CJ changed instantly. They hurriedly backed away. In that case, there is no reason for me to keep pretending. CJ smiled. Then he swept his gaze across the surroundings and shouted with spiritual energy amplifying his voice. "I am CJ, disciple of Daoist Heavenly Sword and Prince of the Tianwei Dynasty. Today, I have come on behalf of my master to issue a challenge. 3 months from now, my master will personally come to Heaven Mending Platform and seek instruction in swordsmanship from Sword Venerable Fu Dao." His voice rolled across the sky, loud enough for the entire city to hear. Someone wanted to challenge Sword Venerable Fu Dao? Han Ming laughed. He himself had once been the first sword cultivator to challenge Sword Venerable Fu Dao, so he warned, "The Epiphyllum Cult may have experts beyond the integration realm. Has your master reached such a realm as well?" CJ snapped his fan shut and smiled. "Of course. My imperial father originally intended to invite him to deal with the Epiphyllum Cult. Unfortunately, we were one step too late." His tone was full of arrogance, as if Daoist Heavenly Sword's victory over Sword Venerable Fu Dao were already a foregone conclusion. That only made the Tai Xuan Sect disciples even more irritated. An old man suddenly appeared beside Sijo and whispered several sentences through a voice transmission technique. Sija's expression changed slightly. "Then let us go. The message has already been delivered. Whether Sword Venerable Fu Dao accepts is his affair." With that, he followed the old man away. Guan watched his departing back and quietly became more cautious. Sword Venerable Fu Dao had only just shattered the Epiphyllum Cult's plot, and his reputation was soaring. For someone to openly step forward and challenge him at a time like this, that person could not be ordinary. Guan did not dwell on it. He turned and left Heaven Mending Platform, intending to check on Wu Juo. A month earlier, Wu Zhou's maximum lifespan had increased again. That had only made Guan more interested in him. He was curious just how far Wu Zhou's lifespan limit could ultimately rise. Inside the pavilion of the Third Medicine Valley, Lu Baitian sneered. "Tianwei is truly ambitious. They want to suppress the Tai Xuan Sect and seize control over the road of the 9 Netherworlds. Daoist Heavenly Sword may be powerful, but if he dares come to the Tai Xuan Sect, he is simply courting death." A month had passed since CJ issued the challenge. By now, news of the duel had spread throughout the cultivation world of the Taichung dynasty, and cultivators from every corner and every sect were pouring in to watch. Lu Baitian was nothing if not cunning. He took advantage of the situation to promote the golden ranking throughout the sect's cities. The so-called golden ranking was a ranking of the greatest talents under heaven, published by the Tai Xuan Sect. It included only geniuses under 500 years old, including those from all 9 dynasties. The idea was sensational enough that the news spread like wildfire. Guan asked worriedly, "The sects of the 9 dynasties won't start fighting among themselves, will they?" "You can rest easy on that point. The demonic calamity is approaching. No one dares create true chaos right now. Besides, the main branch of the Epiphyllum Cult is probably already stirring up trouble along the road of the 9 Netherworlds. The sects of the 9 dynasties must unite. If anyone tries to deal with the Epiphyllum Cult alone, none of them can be certain of victory. That is exactly why Tianwei invited Daoist Heavenly Sword to act. They are using the name of a friendly exchange to pressure the Tai Xuan Sect." Lu Baitian waved his hand dismissively. Guan asked again, "If Sword Venerable Fu Dao kills Daoist Heavenly Sword, could that trigger a war?" Han Ming had been tolerable enough, and now another challenger had appeared. Guan was truly beginning to lose patience. This time, he intended to kill his opponent and make an example of him, lest people continue coming one after another to cause trouble. Of course not. If even Daoist Heavenly Sword dies, Tianwei will only fear the Tai Xuan Sect more. It would be best if Sword Venerable Fu Dao kills him outright, Lu Baitian said, a vicious look flashing across his face. Guan suddenly remembered that this fool had once been impeached by the Elder Hall precisely because he acted too tyrannically. Lu Baitian changed the subject. "And how is Sword Venerable Fu Dao's disciple? Tell me, do you think his appearance before me is Sword Venerable Fu Dao trying to warn me of something?" "Warn you of what?" "That my position as sect master is unstable." As Lu Baitian spoke, his gaze grew deep and distant, his tone drifting enough that no one could tell what he was truly thinking. Guan did not know whether to laugh or cry. Helplessly, he said, "If that were true, wouldn't Chu Tianqi already be dead?" Lu Baitian asked, "Do you think I am right or not?" "And Hao's talent is unparalleled. Sword Venerable Fu Dao naturally values him. If you were in his place, would you send your most cherished disciple to serve as a blade beside your enemy? Guan felt that Lu Baitian was becoming a little obsessed. You have a point. Lu Baitian laughed. Seeing that smile, Guan's heart stirred. Wait a moment. Why was he asking him about this in the first place? Lu Baitian continued. Anhao's talent is too great. Once he fully matures, it will be easy for everyone in the Tai Xuan Sect to respect and support him, just like that foremost true disciple. Boy, if you refuse to become sect master, the position may eventually belong to him. Wouldn't that be even better? I don't want the position anyway. Guan shook his head. Lu Baitian merely smiled and said nothing more. Afterward, Guan asked about Yi Lan. The first group sent to the road of the 9 netherworlds had already departed long ago. Lu Baitian said, "Don't worry. I personally instructed the elder leading the group to look after her." With the azure rainbow sword on Yi Lan, Guan could sense her condition at any time. Still, he could only intervene if she truly encountered danger. Under normal circumstances, he naturally hoped she would not be neglected or bullied. The two chatted for a while longer. Before leaving, Lu Baitian placed a book on the table. Only after he was gone did Guan pick it up. Heaven-defying divine art! At sunset, Liya walked to the edge of heaven-mending platform with the North Sea heavy sword strapped across his back. He stared at the statue of Sword Venerable Fu Dao, unable to hide the excitement in his eyes. Ancestor, so the founding ancestor was Sword Venerable Fu Dao all along, Liya roared inwardly. The old ancestor was just as shocked. I thought he was a demonic expert of Thousand Autumns Pavilion? Ha ha ha, I told you. There was no way the founding ancestor of our Li family could be a demonic cultivator. Liya was delighted. On his way here, he had heard about Daoist Heavenly Swords Challenge, so he had deliberately come to Heaven Mending Platform to admire Sword Venerable Fu Dao's image. Never had he expected that Sword Venerable Fu Dao was actually the founding ancestor of the Li family. He was already looking forward to the coming battle. Why don't you go see your junior brother Gu? The old ancestor asked teasingly. Liya replied inwardly, I won't disturb him. I've encountered some things recently that I can't speak about. I'll wait until I have fully mastered the Tai Chong Divine Shocking Sword before I go. Besides, the Tai Xuan Sect is about to establish the Golden Ranking. I will definitely make a name for myself at the Golden Ranking Tournament. His tone was overflowing with confidence. After consuming the Dragon Elephant Divine Essence and learning the Tai Kang Divine Shocking Sword, his confidence had soared. 7 steps away, another figure approached and began gazing up at the statue of Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Wu Jiao. He looked at the statue with a complicated, distant expression. Master, while you were alive, Sword Venerable Fu Dao was the person you admired most. What a pity, you will never get to witness the battle that is about to happen. As that thought passed through Wu Jiao's mind, he fell silent. Gradually, he entered enlightenment. Liya watched the statue for quite some before turning to leave. Wait, the old ancestor suddenly said. What is it? Liya wondered inwardly. He could hardly wait to return to his inner sect cave dwelling, cultivate in seclusion, and then shock the world with his name. The old ancestor's voice came again. Look at the man beside you. He has actually entered enlightenment. His tone was solemn, and even carried a trace of astonishment. Enlightenment? Liya frowned and turned. His gaze quickly landed on Wu Jiao. Wu Jiao looked dazed and unfocused, completely unlike the spirited Tai Xuan Sect disciples around him. He was in enlightenment? What kind of enlightenment? Is he thinking about a cultivation technique? Liya asked inwardly. The old ancestor replied, Enlightenment is a special state that can only be encountered, never forced. During enlightenment, one can touch the truths of heaven and earth, causing one's comprehension and even physical aptitude to transform. Anyone capable of entering enlightenment, even once, may overturn their destiny. Even I never experienced it. I only once witnessed a close friend enter enlightenment. Had that person survived to this day, he would certainly be one of the greatest experts in the cultivation world of the 9 Dynasties. That powerful? Liya carefully studied Wu Jue but could not see anything special about him. No matter how he looked, the man seemed utterly ordinary, less remarkable, even than his junior brother Gu. At least junior brother Gu was handsome and naturally gave people a favorable impression. The Tai Xuan Sect truly hides dragons and crouching tigers. There is Lu Shan, Ji Xiaoyu, and An Hao, whose cultivation speed is unprecedented throughout history. I had never heard of monstrous talents like these before. And now you encounter someone entering enlightenment. The younger a person is when they first achieve enlightenment, the greater their potential. This man looks close to your age. In the future, he may soar into the heavens in a single leap. The fortune of the Tai Xuan Sect is becoming unstoppable. The old ancestor's voice was full of emotion. Even he was beginning to feel pressure. Remembering the promises he had once made to Liya, he felt ashamed. He had promised to help Liya reach the summit of cultivation and become the strongest under heaven. But after seeing Lu Shan and Ji Xiaoyu, and then hearing all the legends surrounding An Hao, Even the old ancestor began to feel pressure. The talents of those three were simply too astonishing, and their backgrounds far surpassed Li Ya's. At the very least, the old ancestor knew he could not give Li Ya an advantage in cultivation resources. The stronger the Tai Xuan Sect is, the better. If I have rivals, I'll have motivation, Li Ya thought confidently, leaving the old ancestor at a loss for words. Only after a long while did the old ancestor finally say, "Stay nearby and wait for him to wake up. Ask whether he already has a master. If he does not, accept him as a disciple on my behalf." Huh? I'm supposed to take him as my disciple? Of course not. He will be my disciple. What? If he becomes your disciple, wouldn't that make him my ancestor? Be grateful. Without my help, you would not even be qualified to compete with a genius like him. The old ancestor spoke without the slightest mercy. Li Ya was furious, but he could not refute him. So he stayed and waited, using the time to study the sword intent of the Taikong Divine Shocking Sword. He waited the entire night. Only at dawn the next day did Wu Jiu awaken. He had entered enlightenment more than once by now, so his expression remained calm. He turned to leave only for Li Ya to step in front of him. "Brother, do you already have a master?" Li Ya asked bluntly. A cold glint flashed through Wu Jiu's eyes. Without answering, he simply walked around Li Ya and headed down the platform. Li Ya blocked him again. This time, Wu Jiu grew angry and reached out to shove him aside. Li Ya's body was exceptionally powerful, and he had no reason to fear a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. Wu Jiu pressed his right palm against Li Ya's shoulder. Feeling the strength in the other man's body, he immediately clenched his hand into a fist and pushed with force. Caught off guard, Li Ya was forced back 2 steps. Before he could react, Wu Jiu mounted his flying sword and left. Since causing trouble inside the city was forbidden, Li Ya could not conveniently chase after him. How is that possible? What terrifying strength? Li Ya stared in astonishment. The old ancestor sighed inside him. A pity. Let him go. There is no need to create an enemy. The smile on Li Ya's face vanished. He was a core formation realm cultivator, yet a mere Foundation Establishment realm cultivator had shoved him backward. Worse still, he had consumed the Dragon Elephant Divine Essence, a treasure coveted by demon beasts. How humiliating. No. I'm still not strong enough. Li Ya clenched his fists. The arrogance in his heart scattered like smoke. By autumn, the outer sect city had become exceptionally lively. Guan and Wu Jiu met at an inn, drinking wine and chatting as they waited for the decisive duel to begin. Wu Jiu was complaining to Guan about his encounter with Li Ya the previous month. The moment he mentioned Li Ya, anger appeared on his face. He felt that Li Ya had deliberately humiliated him. After listening, Guan nodded. It really was inappropriate to ask something like that the first time you met. But forget about him. He is merely a passerby in your life. Sooner or later, you will become a true genius. Why waste your energy arguing with such a minor figure? The person Wu Jiu described did sound irritating, but Guan did not think the offense deserved anything serious. There was no need for Wu Jiu to hold on to it. If Wu Jiu could not tolerate even small conflicts, then once he became powerful, what would happen? Would he kill anyone who displeased him? Guan did not want Wu Jiu to become that kind of person. Wu Jiu nodded. Of course I won't hold a grudge, I was only venting to you. You know, you're the only friend I have. Guan asked, when are you planning to reveal your talent? The inn was packed with people, and almost everyone was discussing Sword Venerable Fu Dao and Daoist Heavenly Sword. No one paid any attention to the two of them. Hearing Guan's question, Wu Jiu shook his head. I'm fine the way I am now. He did not trust others. The Tai Xuan Sect had experienced internal turmoil before, and the previous sect master had even used disciples as blood sacrifices that had left Wu Jiu deeply wary of the sect. Guan took a storage pouch from his waist and handed it over. Wu Jiu accepted it suspiciously and swept his spiritual sense inside. His expression changed at once and he hurriedly pushed it back. Brother Gu, I can't take this. How do you have so much? He had always assumed Guan was like him, an ordinary disciple near the bottom of the sect. Never had he imagined Guan could casually produce so many pills. Guan smiled. I'm a Medicine Valley master. These are pills I refine in my spare time. Take them. I don't have much desire to become powerful. Fighting is the thing I fear most. Growing flowers and herbs is what makes me happy, so the pills are better used on you. Once you become strong, you can protect me in the future. But this is far too much. Wu Jiu hesitated. You're the one who said I'm your only friend, so accept them. Still embarrassed? Then just recognize me as your elder brother. An elder brother is like half a father and half a teacher. I'll take good care of you in your master's place. Pills are one thing I'll never lack. Guan winked at him. Wu Jiu laughed and rolled his eyes. I'm 2 years older than you. If anyone should be the elder brother, it's me. Forget it. Your mentality is far less mature than mine. The two immediately began bickering, and Wu Jiu's smile grew brighter and brighter. In the end, he accepted the storage pouch. At the same time, he silently swore that he would never allow anyone to bully Guan in the future. The two continued drinking. About the time it took an incense stick to burn later, a thunderous voice echoed throughout the entire outer sect city. This humble Daoist is Daoist Heavenly Sword. I have come to seek instruction in swordsmanship from Sword Venerable Fu Dao of the Tai Xuan Sect. The instant those words faded, a vast and magnificent sword intent descended over the entire city. Wu Ju's expression changed, and he immediately turned toward the source. Guan, however, remained calm. He had sensed Daoist Heavenly Sword's aura long before. This Daoist Heavenly Sword truly was powerful. He was slightly stronger than Fairy Yi Lian of the Epiphyllum Cult, probably around the 4th or 5th layer of the Profound Heart Realm. Once one reached the Profound Heart Realm, even the gap between minor layers became extremely difficult to overcome. No wonder Daoist Heavenly Sword dared come here. Guan stood. I just remembered that I still have something to deliver to the Pill Hall. I need to hurry, or I'll miss the duel between Sword Venerable Fu Dao and Daoist Heavenly Sword. Wait for me. I'll come find you afterward. Before Wu Ju could stop him, Guan hurried downstairs. Wu Ju leaned out of the window and shouted after him, "Hurry back!" Guan did not turn around. He simply waved one sleeve and quickly disappeared around a bend in the street. Daoist Heavenly Sword had arrived. The outer sect city instantly erupted. More and more cultivators flew into the air, looking around for his figure. At that moment, a brilliant white sword projection descended from the sky and hovered above the southern city gate. It was 30 meters tall. Standing upon its hilt was a white-haired old man with the bearing of an immortal. He wore pure white robes and carried no sword in his hands, nor did he release any deliberately oppressive aura. His hands rested casually behind his back. He closed his eyes and waited. Word spread rapidly. Disciples from every street in the outer sect city began rushing toward the scene. Lu Baitian brought An Hao to heaven-mending platform. Soon after, Ancestor Xuanquan, Gu Zong and other high-ranking figures of the Tai Xuan Sect appeared one after another. An Hao stared curiously at Daoist Heavenly Sword. By now he already knew that his master was Sword Venerable Fu Dao of the Tai Xuan Sect, so he had deliberately come to watch. In An Hao's heart, his master was invincible. He had never once considered the possibility of defeat. He only wanted to see how Daoist Heavenly Sword would lose. Ancestor Xuanquan stroked his beard and sighed. Such dense sword intent. His cultivation is extraordinarily profound, as expected of him. He is every bit as powerful as he was 1,000 years ago. He and Daoist Heavenly Sword were cultivators of the same era. He had personally witnessed Daoist Heavenly Sword's might, so he did not underestimate him in the slightest. The number of people on heaven-mending platform rose rapidly. Before long, the enormous platform packed with cultivators. Li Ya also arrived. He stood on a rooftop and watched Daoist Heavenly Sword from afar. The old man's bearing was so overwhelming that it gave people the impression of facing an immortal descended to the mortal world. Jing Hongke could not compare at all. Even Li Ya could not help feeling nervous. This old man is definitely not simple, Li Ya thought. Indeed, he is most likely in existence beyond the integration realm. For him to appear at such a critical moment, he must have enormous confidence. He is even stronger than I was at my peak, the old ancestor said solemnly. Stronger than you were alive again? Li Ya badly wanted to mock him, but held himself back. Perhaps the old ancestor could hear his thoughts, because for a moment an awkward silence settled between them. They could only wait for Sword Venerable Fu Dao to appear. Prince Sijia of Tianwei arrived on heaven-mending platform and laughed. Everyone, watch closely. Witness the greatest swordsmanship of Tianwei, and learn what a sword immortal of the mortal world truly looks like. The Tai Xuan Sect disciples immediately bristled at his words, but Daoist Heavenly Sword's presence was simply too overwhelming. Under the old man's gaze, none of them dared speak too recklessly. Time continued to pass. Shenzhen arrived as well. Standing atop a roof with paper and brush in hand, she stared at Daoist Heavenly Sword with eager anticipation. At the same time, Guan had already moved into a distant mountain forest. He sat beneath a tree, thinking about how he should defeat Daoist Heavenly Sword. It was rare for him to make a public move, and this time the entire world would be watching. He had to make it spectacular. Guan looked at the leaf in his hand, then casually tossed the dried leaf to the ground. Fine. Then I'll let all of you witness what the true Taikong Divine Shocking Sword looks like. Back in the outer sect city, Daoist Heavenly Sword stood upon the giant glowing white sword without moving an inch. Autumn wind stirred his robes, snow-white hair, and long silver beard, making him seem otherworldly, as though he might ascend into immortality at any moment. Every rooftop in the city was crowded with disciples. Not only members of the Tai Xuan Sect had gathered. Cultivators from other sects and great clans had come as well, all wanting to witness who truly deserved to be called the greatest swordsman of the age. Dark clouds rolled in from the horizon and swiftly covered the city, making the atmosphere even more oppressive. No one dared speak loudly. Conversations dropped to nervous whispers. Wu Ju stood on a rooftop, feeling the wind strike his face. It grew stronger and stronger, forcing him to circulate his cultivation simply to keep his hair from whipping across his eyes. What an overwhelming presence. He truly has the bearing of an immortal. Why hasn't Sword Venerable Fu Dao appeared yet? This battle can't be avoided. The Prince of Tianwei has already come straight to our doorstep. Relax. The Sword Venerable will definitely appear. Last time the Sword Maniac of Great Yu challenged him, even he had to wait a while. What are you rushing for? The best show has to build up first. Listening to the surrounding discussions, Wu Zhou's eyes filled with admiration. He wondered when he himself would possess such prestige. One day, he too wanted to duel the greatest experts of the age before the eyes of 10,000 spectators, and he hoped his opponent would be Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Rumble? The dark cloud suddenly churned. Thunder boomed across the heavens as a majestic heavenly pressure descended over the entire outer sect city. "He's here," Ancestor Zhuanquan murmured. Everyone nearby immediately looked up, and Hao grew even more excited, both fists clenched tightly. Daoist Heavenly Sword opened his eyes atop the glowing sword and raised his head toward the endless thunderclouds. Storm clouds covered the entire sky. Bolts of lightning descended like coiling azure dragons, filling countless cultivators with suffocating dread, as if some catastrophic tribulation were about to descend. Thunder roared endlessly. Fierce winds ravaged heaven and earth. Daoist Heavenly Sword stood on the sword hilt, his white robes whipping violently around him like blazing white flames. "Sword Venerable Fu Dao, why do you refuse to show yourself? Is this how the Tai Xuan Sect treats a guest?" His cold voice rang out. On heaven-mending platform, Han Ming sneered. "I never even got to see Sword Venerable Fu Dao when I challenged him, and you think you deserve to? Just wait to lose." Shen Zhen had already finished sketching Daoist Heavenly Sword. She took out a fresh sheet of paper and began painting again, first capturing the oppressive thunderclouds spreading across the sky. "Use the strongest sword Dao you possess, and welcome your own withering." A rough, weathered voice echoed through the heavens. Li Ya and An Hao both trembled with excitement. The founding ancestor, master, every cultivator in the city held their breath. It was the first time most of them had ever heard Sword Venerable Fu Dao speak, and they were immediately shaken by the sheer dominance in his voice. Absolute confidence. Absolute strength. This was the Sword Venerable Fu Dao of the Tai Xuan Sect. Daoist Heavenly Sword's gaze sharpened. A magnificent sword intent erupted from his body and swept across the sky above the city, forming a vast ocean of sword light. Brilliant radiance surged through it, and countless star-like sword gleams floated within, illuminating every face below. From a distance, it resembled a silver river stretching across the heavens. The sight left everyone stunned. How powerful was this sword intent? Could cultivation truly reach such a level? Within that sword intent galaxy, countless sword projections appeared, each blade pointing upward and radiating terrifying sharpness. At the same time, the thunderclouds above began churning even faster. Cloud and mist rapidly gathered into an enormous face. Only its features could be seen, its true form indistinct, like an immortal god manifesting in the heavens to look down upon the entire outer sect city. Before that gigantic face, everyone became insignificant. Even Daoist Heavenly Sword's magnificent river of sword intent seemed small. Hearts began pounding faster. As the enormous face occupied more than half the sky, an instinctive awe rose within every cultivator who looked upon it. Daoist Heavenly Sword frowned. He raised his right hand and placed 2 fingers before his lips as he began circulating his cultivation. The sword intent around him condensed into white flames of energy, while fierce winds spiraled around his body. His aura climbed to its absolute peak, powerful enough to activate the outer sect city's defensive formation. A gigantic dome of light appeared, protecting the entire city. Daoist Heavenly Sword hovered above the city gate, positioned exactly at the edge of that glowing barrier. The earth trembled, the surrounding mountains shook. Even the distant Xuan Valley felt the disturbance, and every servant disciple there turned toward the horizon. Chu Jingfeng quickly climbed to the mountain peak. Looking into the distance, he saw thunderclouds boiling at the edge of the sky, as though a great tribulation were about to descend. It was not only Xuan Valley. Even Tianya Valley, tens of thousands of miles away, sensed the disturbance. Yi Liuyun sat meditating atop a mountain and narrowed his eyes toward the distant horizon, his hands clenched tightly inside his sleeves. As someone who pursued the Sword Dao, he suddenly felt just how insignificant he truly was. On heaven-mending platform, Prince Sijie of Tianwei had also grown nervous. Sword Venerable Fu Dao had yet to reveal himself, but the enormous face in the heavens was already so terrifying that Sijie could not imagine what kind of power would be needed to withstand its pressure. "Heavenly Sword Manifest!" Within the oppressive silence, Daoist Heavenly Sword's voice suddenly rang out, like the first ray of light tearing through primordial chaos. Everyone's spirit shook. Daoist Heavenly Sword thrust his right hand sharply toward the heavens. The tens of thousands of sword projections floating inside his sword intent galaxy shot upward together and began converging in the sky. Layer upon layer gathered into an immense formation, magnificent beyond description. At that exact moment, the gigantic face above suddenly opened a third eye in the center of its forehead. A beam of sword light erupted from that eye. It was like the radiance of the heavenly Tao itself, descending with supreme heavenly might. Boom! The two terrifying sword intents collided in midair. Heaven and earth shook violently. The senses of countless cultivators were thrown into chaos. Their vision trembled and blurred. A storm of distorted noise crashed into their ears. Even their spiritual senses began to burn, forcing them to instinctively withdraw them back into their bodies. Profound heart! Lu Baitian stared up at the earth-shaking duel and muttered under his breath. Two immense lights illuminated his face, dividing it into upper and lower halves. Below was brilliant silver-white radiance. Above was a darker, heavier glow, and the darker light was steadily devouring the silver-white light beneath it. Daoist Heavenly Sword's expression changed drastically. His opponent's sword intent had exceeded his imagination. Impossible. Is he not merely in the profound heart realm? Disbelief surged through Daoist Heavenly Sword's heart. Then the sword light from the third eye suddenly intensified. In an instant, it shattered Daoist Heavenly Sword's sword intent, and descended at a speed far beyond lightning, striking him directly. His white hair and robes exploded backward in the wind. His eyes widened, his entire body froze. Within his pupils, a vague figure seemed to appear standing high above, looking down upon him as a heavenly immortal would look upon ants crawling across the earth. To everyone watching, Daoist Heavenly Sword's sword intent had lasted only 2 brief breaths before collapsing completely. The magnificent galaxy of sword light shattered into countless silver fragments that drifted through the sky both inside and outside the city. The spectacle was so breathtaking that even the highest-level cultivators could not remain unmoved. Ancestor Zhuangquan's eyes widened as enormous waves surged through his heart. As the person with the highest cultivation present, he saw more clearly than anyone else. The gap between Sword Venerable Fu Dao and Daoist Heavenly Sword was enormous. Daoist Heavenly Sword was not his opponent at all. Ancestor Xianxia could even tell that Sword Venerable Fu Dao had deliberately held back. Otherwise, Daoist Heavenly Sword could have been annihilated instantly. Perhaps Sword Venerable Fu Dao had allowed Daoist Heavenly Sword to reveal his powerful sword intent, first simply so that the true terror of his own swordsmanship would become even more obvious. At the very least, Ancestor Zhuangquan himself had been frightened. Even he could not imagine how powerful Sword Venerable Fu Dao truly was. CG stared at Daoist Heavenly Sword's falling body, his pupils dilated and his face filled with disbelief. Before Sword Venerable Fu Dao made his move, Daoist Heavenly Sword had been the strongest cultivator under heaven in CJ's eyes. Yet this supposed strongest man under heaven had been defeated without the slightest ability to resist. Han Ming, the sword maniac of Great Yu, fell into a daze. The power displayed by Sword Venerable Fu Dao left him ashamed of himself. Looking back, he realized just how badly he had overestimated his own ability when he challenged the man, and Hao smiled, desperately suppressing the urge to cheer aloud. Li Ya stood frozen on a rooftop, eyes wide and mouth hanging open. Shenzhen quickly regained her composure and began moving her brush at incredible speed, capturing Daoist Heavenly Sword's crushing defeat on paper. A fierce wind swept past. Daoist Heavenly Sword fell backward. His profound heart had been shattered, and his primordial spirit was continuously disintegrating. There was no saving him now. He could not even speak properly. Yet a satisfied smile appeared on his face. The greatest under heaven. Sword, I have finally witnessed it. His eyelids grew heavier and heavier. His gaze remained fixed on the enormous face in the sky. Even after his eyes closed, the corner of his mouth remained faintly raised. Thud! Daoist Heavenly Sword's corpse struck the ground outside the southern city gate, sending dust billowing upward. The pressure covering heaven and earth vanished. The gigantic face formed from thunderclouds also dispersed. Then, roar! The entire city exploded with cheers, the noise booming like thunder across a clear sky. Everyone was overwhelmed with excitement. Shouts, cheers, and cries of amazement blended together into a deafening wave. My heavens! It ended in a single move? Ha ha ha! I told you Sword Venerable Fu Dao could never lose. The difference between them was far too great. To be fair, Daoist Heavenly Sword was incredibly strong. Before Sword Venerable Fu Dao acted, I genuinely thought he might be the greatest under heaven. Exactly. That ocean of sword intent even made my own sword want to leap from its sheath. Wu Ju listened to the uproar from every direction and felt just as excited as everyone else. Unfortunately, Guan was not there, so he felt awkward expressing his excitement alone. At that moment, he spotted Guan rushing up from the street below and quickly making his way toward him. Wu Ju's face instantly lit up. My heavens, did you see that? That was unbelievable. Guan arrived in front of him, looking equally excited. I saw it! I saw it! Wu Jue grabbed him and began excitedly talking about everything he had just witnessed, just like everyone else in the city. On heaven-mending platform, Lu Baitian turned toward Gu Zong and ordered, "Promote the Golden Ranking Tournament on a massive scale. The person who takes first place will receive a secret divine ability manual from the Tai Xuan Sect." Gu Zong nodded, unable to suppress the grin on his face. Lu Baitian then turned toward another elder. "Begin the greatest sword under heaven plan. Release the news first. The top 10 swordsmen under heaven will be allowed to Sword Venerable Fu Dao's sword intent and receive part of his Sword Dao inheritance." The elder nodded, then suddenly seemed to remember something. He opened his mouth, hesitated, and said nothing. There were too many people nearby. Some questions could not be asked publicly. The outer sect city was livelier than during New Year celebrations. No, perhaps the city had never been this lively before. Ancestor Xuanquan swept his gaze across the scene, stroked his beard, and sighed with emotion. The Tai Xuan Sect is destined to prosper. And Hao closed his eyes and carefully replayed Sword Venerable Fu Dao's attack in his mind. Deep within his consciousness, it felt as though he had grasped something. His entire being sank into that mysterious state. Ancestor Xuanquan seemed to sense it and suddenly turned toward him. The others did the same. When they saw An Hao's condition, their expressions changed. This boy. Inside the inn, Guan and Wuju finally managed to squeeze into seats. Once seated, they continued excitedly discussing the earth-shaking duel they had just witnessed. The battle had been extremely short, yet it was more than enough to make everyone who saw it feel their blood boil. Guan smiled and played along, though inwardly he felt a little disappointed. Killing Daoist Heavenly Sword had granted him only 10 years of lifespan. The reason was simple. The old Daoist had less than 200 years left to live. That was why Guan had used the word withering when speaking to him. Daoist Heavenly Sword had probably reached the profound heart realm a very long time ago. 700 years earlier, perhaps he had stopped seeing any hope of further advancement and retreated into the mountains. Unfortunately, even 700 years of bitter seclusion had failed to bring him enlightenment. This time, when he came here, Daoist Heavenly Sword had truly come seeking death. Guan did not dwell on it. His attention quickly shifted to An Hao on heaven-mending platform. An Hao had actually entered enlightenment. The sect elders had already gathered around him to provide protection. Good boy. Guan felt genuinely pleased. The stronger An Hao became, the happier he naturally was. An Hao was his true disciple. Unlike the disciples working in the medicine valleys, every achievement An Hao made directly reflected glory back onto him. With so many powerful cultivators protecting the boy, Guan could relax. He withdrew his thoughts and returned his attention to drinking and chatting with Wu Juo. Not long afterward, someone approached and sat beside Guan. She casually held up the painting in her hands for him to see. "Well, how did I do?" Shenzhen asked with a smile. Guan focused on the painting. It depicted Daoist Heavenly Sword spreading his arms as sword light descended from the heavens. The style was dark and sharp, with a tragic beauty that made the scene feel almost heroic. "Not bad, as expected of you," Guan praised casually. Shenzhen pouted. She could tell he was merely being polite. Wu Ju hesitantly asked, "Brother Gu, this young lady is?" Shenzhen wore a veil, but judging from her attire and facial outline, she was clearly beautiful, and her status was obviously not ordinary. Guan smiled. "This is Shenzhen. Just call her Miss Shen like I do." Then he introduced Wu Ju to her. Seeing Shenzhen's indifferent reaction, Guan added, "This brother of mine is anything but ordinary. In the future, he will definitely make his name resound throughout the Tai Xuan Sect. Don't speak nonsense." Wu Ju hurriedly interrupted, his face instantly turning red. "Oh?" Shenzhen looked at him again with new interest, making him even more uncomfortable. Guan laughed. "Come, have a drink. We can talk while we drink." In his view, Wu Ju would reveal his talent sooner or later, while Shenzhen was the holy maiden of a major sect. Their paths would likely cross again someday. Becoming acquainted now might allow them to look after one another in the future. At first, Shenzhen talked mostly about the battle they had just witnessed. Later, she gradually took control of the conversation entirely. Guan once again became the one who merely responded at appropriate moments, while Wu Ju remained stiff and awkward, smiling whenever he did not know what else to do. After the time it took an incense stick to burn, Shenzhen stood and left, planning to paint several more scenes from the duel. Only after she was gone did Wu Ju finally let out a long breath. Guan teased him. "Why were you so nervous? Don't tell me you fell for her? Don't talk nonsense. That girl clearly has feelings for you. As your brother, how could I entertain improper thoughts about her? I'm simply bad at talking to women. You know that. You're the only friend I have." Wu Ju rolled his eyes, his expression deadly serious. "Again with this. You're the only friend I have." Guan shook his head and laughed. "One more friend is one more path. Walking through the cultivation world alone is exhausting. I know. I'm just not good at making friends. Then what about me? You and I became close the moment we met. That wasn't making a friend. That was fate. Ha! You brat! You certainly don't seem shy when you're talking to me. Guan laughed happily. Around him, Wu Ju was completely at ease without the slightest nervousness. The two continued talking until sunset before finally parting ways. Guan returned to Xuan Valley and looked around at the disciples. He noticed Chu Jingfeng sitting in bitter meditation on a mountain peak but did not disturb him. If Chu Jingfeng could also enter enlightenment, that would naturally be a good thing. But enlightenment was not so easy to attain. And Hao and Wu Ju were both peak geniuses rarely seen even once in 1,000 years. Not everyone could compare with them. After remaining in Xuan Valley for half an hour, Guan finally traveled to the Third Medicine Valley. The Third Medicine Valley was far livelier than Xuan Valley after all. It had 10 times as many disciples. Guan chatted with them for a while before returning to his pavilion, planning to calm his mind by reading. Late that night, footsteps sounded outside his room. Soon, a voice entered directly through a voice transmission technique. Valley Master, I have something I need to tell you. Lu Lingjun. And she was using voice transmission. Guan put down the copy of Tai Xuan's Secret Chronicle in his hands and quickly covered it with Investiture of the Gods before saying, "Come in." Lu Lingjun pushed open the door and entered. After closing it behind her, she cast a spell toward the entrance and set down a restriction. Guan reacted immediately, staring at her in surprise. Lu Lingjun turned, walked to the table, and cupped her hands respectfully. "Valley Master, I truly apologize. There is something I have been hiding from you. Your cultivation." Guan asked nervously. Lu Lingjun replied, "I will not hide it any longer. In truth, I possess cultivation in the Void-Crossing Realm." Void-Crossing Realm. Guan abruptly shot to his feet. Lu Lingjun hurriedly said, "Valley Master, I bear no ill intentions. Please hear me out first." Guan's expression changed repeatedly. In the end, he slowly sat back down. Seeing him sit, Lu Lingjun smiled. "I concealed my cultivation because I knew too little about the Nine Dynasties. I come from a very distant place. While exploring the cave dwelling of a great expert, I encountered a mysterious formation and was transported here. I could not find a way home, so I decided to establish myself in the Tai Xuan Sect. I hope Valley Master can help introduce me properly." Guan looked surprised. "With your cultivation, if you want to join the Tai Xuan Sect, you can do so openly. Why would you need me to introduce you? The rules of the Tai Xuan Sect are strict. With my cultivation, if I joined normally, I could only become a guest elder and would have to endure years of observation. Valley Master has excellent connections. If you were willing to help me, wouldn't that save me decades of waiting?" Lu Lingjun said seriously. Then she took 3 small bottles from her sleeve. "These are all heavenly spirit water. I hope Valley Master will accept them." Guan immediately put on a stern expression. "Outrageous, if you do this. People will think I only agreed to help because I accepted your gifts. If word got out, what would become of my reputation?" As he spoke, he swept the 3 bottles toward himself. Lu Lingjun smiled. "How could that be? One matter is one matter. These few drops of heavenly spirit water are simply my thanks for Valley Master taking care of me all this time. You are thoughtful." Guan smiled in satisfaction and motioned for her to sit. He began giving her advice, mostly explaining the internal structure of the Tai Xuan Sect and the roles played by the great clans, so that Lu Lingjun would not accidentally make enemies she did not need. At first, she did not take it too seriously. But the longer she listened, the more she realized Guan was genuinely thinking about her future, and her attitude gradually became earnest. Autumn passed and winter arrived. Heavy snow covered Third Medicine Valley. One day, Lu Baitian came to visit Guan. The moment Lu Lingjun saw him, she knew her opportunity had arrived. Guan did not disappoint her. More than half an hour later, he and Lu Baitian came downstairs together. From a distance, Guan waved toward Lu Lingjun. She quickly approached. Lu Baitian looked her over and said, "Guan already told me about you. Come with me. I'll take you to replace your disciple token." Lu Lingjun immediately bowed to thank Lu Baitian, then saluted Guan as well. Guan smiled and nodded, watching as the two flew away. Xiaoxuan walked over and asked in surprise, "Why did Lu Lingjun leave? Didn't you notice how fast she was flying?" Guan asked before turning away. Xiaoxuan froze for a moment, then hurried after him. "What do you mean? Wasn't that senior carrying her along?" Xiaoxuan, "Yes, senior brother. Sometimes having a big heart is a good thing. Keep it that way." "Huh?" Guan ignored him and headed toward the Heavenly Spirit Pond. Watching the carp swim had become one of his current pleasures. Lu Baitian had come to discuss the Golden Ranking Tournament and the Greatest Sword Under Heaven gathering. Guan did not want to become a permanent strategist for the Sect Master, so he deliberately offered only a few suggestions. Because of that, Lu Baitian had not stayed long. The coming years should finally be peaceful. Guan thought so at the time. That winter, News that Sword Venerable Fu Dao had killed Daoist Heavenly Sword with a single move finally began spreading wildly across all 9 dynasties. The Tai Xuan Sect took advantage of the momentum and opened negotiations with the other dynasties, preparing to establish influence beyond Taichung territory. The process was immensely difficult, and the upper ranks of the Tai Xuan Sect were exhausted from it. Yet from top to bottom, everyone could feel the same momentum. The Tai Xuan Sect was rising. With the strongest cultivator under heaven standing behind it, how could the Tai Xuan Sect remain confined to a single dynasty? Time flew. Nearly 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. At 67 years old, Guan walked out of the pill hall. He paused before the main entrance, turned back, and let out a quiet sigh. Zhou Qinglu was no longer there. The old man had retired and returned to his homeland. The new elder treated Guan with great respect, yet he still felt strangely uncomfortable. Old faces departed. New ones took their place. Guan turned away and blended into the bustling crowds on the street. 5 years had passed, and the Tai Xuan Sect had risen dramatically. One only had to look at the number of disciples filling the outer sect cities to see it. The Golden Ranking Tournament had also become known throughout the world. It was scheduled to be held at the Tai Xuan Sect 5 years from now. Rumor had it that the sect had already invited hundreds of great clans spread across the 9 dynasties. With those clans helping to attract participants, the number of geniuses entering the Golden Ranking would only grow in the future. Guan suspected the Ji and Gu clans had put in considerable effort. Of course, the other great families were also willing to invest in the Tai Xuan Sect. Having another path available was never a bad thing. As Guan walked along the street, the conversations of passing disciples drifted into his ears. Countless geniuses were mentioned, but Anhao's name appeared most often. The year before, Anhao had descended the mountain to gain experience, clashed with demonic cultivators, and used his core formation realm cultivation to kill a nascent soul realm expert. His fame had shaken the cultivation world. The title of #1 genius of the Tai Xuan Sect now rested firmly on Anhao's head. No one could challenge it. As for Lu Xian, although he had taken first place in the 100 Clans tournament, the 100 Clans stood high above ordinary cultivation society and had little connection with the wider cultivation world. During these 5 years, Guan's life had remained extremely peaceful, yet his accumulated lifespan had increased by more than 700,000 years, pushing him beyond the 2 million year mark. 10 million years no longer felt impossibly distant. Because of that, he was full of motivation every day and never felt tired or bored. "Brother Gu, long time no see." A voice came from the corner of the street. Guan turned and saw Zhou Tongyo, the genius of Absolute Mountain Sect, walking toward him. Behind Zhou Tongyo followed a round, elderly man holding a feather fan. He looked almost harmless, with a simple and kindly appearance. Before Zhou Tongyo could reach Guan, Lu Lingjun suddenly appeared in front of him. Back then, after following Lu Baitian away, she had returned the very next day. Her current position was that of an inner sect elder, but her assigned duty was to protect Guan. That arrangement had frustrated her for a very long time. If she had not been wary of Sword Venerable Fu Dao, she might have drawn her sword and tried to cut down Lu Bai herself. The old man behind him is not simple, Lu Lingjun warned Guan through voice transmission. Her gaze passed over Zhou Tongyo and settled on the plump elder behind him. Guan had already seen through the elder's cultivation, but he still used lifespan detection. Zhou Li Integration Realm 7th Layer, 1478-3000-3100, another person surnamed Chu. Guan was curious. The last time Zhou Dongyu visited, no such powerful cultivator had accompanied him. Zhou Dongyu looked Lu Lingjun over, then smiled. "Brother Gu, it has been many years. Even you have an expert protecting you now. It seems you have been living quite well." Guan smiled. "Brother Chu, have you come this time to participate in the Golden Ranking Tournament?" "Exactly. This time I intend to take first place and make my name known under heaven. What do you say? Shall we go to your Medicine Valley and exchange a few moves?" Zhou Tongyu asked, eyes shining. They had not met for years, and Guan's cultivation still looked as ordinary as ever. But Zhou Tongyu had always felt that Guan possessed abilities hidden beneath the surface. Guan shook his head. "Forget it. I no longer enjoy seeking hardship for myself. The Tai Xuan Sect is full of geniuses now. Go find someone else. Ha ha ha. I came here specifically because I heard about Anhao. If you refuse, then I'll go find him instead." Zhou Tongyu laughed, turned, and walked away. Zhou Li, the Integration Realm cultivator at the 7th layer, smiled and nodded toward Lu Lingjun before following him. Once they were gone, Lu Lingjun turned to Guan. "A nascent soul realm cultivator came looking for you to exchange moves?" Zhou Tongyu had already reached the nascent soul realm and made no effort to conceal his aura. "Back then, he suppressed his cultivation to spar with me, and I won by a little," Guan said proudly. Lu Lingjun laughed. "I didn't expect you to have such ability. Truly, one cannot judge a person by appearances." After living around each other for 5 years, the two had become familiar enough that much of their former politeness had disappeared. Of course, she still resented Lu Baitian's arrangement, so her attitude toward Guan was no longer as respectful as before. That sounds strange. Am I not handsome? You are somewhat handsome. Suitable for being a cultivation furnace for a demonic woman. Cough, cough. You are a female cultivator. Please watch how you speak. Guan glanced at her and continued walking. Ever since Lu Lingjun had been sent back, her personality had changed noticeably. Guan also felt somewhat guilty. Knowing he had played a role in her predicament, he could only indulge her more than before. It was all Lu Baitian's fault. What kind of arrangement was this? Guan did not need Lu Lingjun to protect him at all. Fortunately, she was also extremely lazy about the assignment. She had only come to the outer sect today because she had business of her own and happened to accompany him along the way. Lu Lingjun watched Guan's back, snorted, and turned in another direction. Guan headed off to see Wu Zhou. As he walked through the city, he noticed quite a few powerful cultivators. Most of them were hiding their true cultivation. It seemed the coming golden ranking tournament might not be entirely peaceful. That was understandable. If the Tai Xuan Sect successfully established the tournament, hosting it in the future would become easier and easier. Other sects naturally would not simply sit by and watch. Guan was not worried. Besides ancestor Zhuanquan, another supreme elder had recently returned to the Tai Xuan Sect. This newcomer was somewhat weaker than ancestor Zhuanquan, but had also reached the Profound Heart Realm. With 2 Profound Heart Realm experts standing guard, shaking the Tai Xuan Sect would not be easy. About the time it took an incense stick to burn later, Guan entered Wu Jue's courtyard. Wu Jue was practicing fist techniques without using spiritual energy, focusing purely on movement and form. His upper body was bare, revealing a powerful physique. Every punch seemed to make the air tremble. Wu Ju, Foundation Establishment Realm, 9th Layer, 69 350 3500. His maximum lifespan had risen again. Guan had discovered something strange. As long as he did not visit Wu Ju for more than 2 months, the man seemed almost guaranteed to enter enlightenment. There had even been a year when Guan visited him every month, and during that entire time Wu Jue failed to enter enlightenment once. After enlightenment, Wu Jue would also carry a faint aura of loneliness and isolation. This gave Guan a strange suspicion. Could it be that this guy only enters enlightenment after feeling abandoned? Then I won't visit him for the next 5 years. Let's see how far he can go. Guan truly hoped Wu Jue could catch up to An Hao. That way, An Hao would have a worthy rival and would be less likely to develop an arrogant, overbearing temperament. Everything going too smoothly was not necessarily good. Seeing Guan arrive, Wu Jue glanced at him but said nothing. "Look what good thing I brought you," Guan called. Wu Ju immediately stopped practicing and reluctantly walked over. "What good thing?" Guan took an invitation from his storage pouch. It had a red background edged in gold, with 4 large characters engraved across the surface. Golden Ranking Tournament. "You? How did you get this?" Wu Jiao asked in astonishment. Not just anyone could participate in the Golden Ranking Tournament. One needed a certain degree of fame and had to pay 10 high-grade spirit stones before receiving an invitation. The rewards were also extremely generous. The top 100 participants would all receive prizes, and the higher the ranking, the greater the reward. Naturally, Wu Jue had investigated the tournament before and had envied the geniuses who could take part. Guan smiled proudly. "I put in a great deal of effort for this, but with my cultivation, I would only be there to make up the numbers." Wu Jiao shook his head. "Don't worry. The Golden Ranking Tournament compares talent, not raw cultivation. As long as you are strong enough among people of the same realm, you can fight your way through." "Really? Really? I helped make the rules. How could it not be true?" Guan thought to himself. What Wu Ju lacked most was resources. Hiding forever was not necessarily good. In truth, Wu Ju also wanted a chance to step into the light. He was simply too proud and awkward to ask others for help. Wu Jue accepted the invitation, suddenly hugged Guan and slapped him hard on the back. Then he gripped Guan's shoulders and said, "Brother, I won't say too much. I swear I won't let you lose face." After entering enlightenment again and again, Wu Ju could clearly feel himself changing. He had developed confidence, and that confidence was steadily reshaping his personality. The confidence of a strong man. Guan smiled. "There are still 5 years before the tournament. Cultivate hard. For the next 5 years, I won't come see you." Wu Ju immediately became anxious. "Why? What could possibly keep you busy for 5 whole years?" "Naturally, sect matters. I can't tell you." Guan shook his head. Could it be because of this invitation? Suddenly, the golden ranking invitation in Wu Ju's hand felt incredibly heavy. He opened his mouth, then stopped himself. Guan reminded him, "Besides Sunset Fist, don't forget to practice Gale Shadowless Kick. It can make you faster." Wu Ju nodded heavily. At this golden ranking tournament, he swore he would accomplish something worthy of the opportunity. Near the end of summer in Xuan Valley, Guan lay beneath a tree with one arm behind his head and a book in the other hand, reading with great interest. A figure walked up and looked down at him. It was Li Ya. Li Ya still carried the heavy sword across his back. He wore black robes and his long hair was tied behind his head with a blue cloth band, revealing a firm and handsome face. Ahem, Junior Brother Gu. Li Ya deliberately cleared his throat. Tai Xuan's Secret Chronicle. So Junior Brother Gu reads it too. Well, they have the same name. He probably feels especially immersed in it, Li Ya silently thought. Guan quickly sat up and stuffed Tai Xuan's Secret Chronicle into his clothes. He had sensed Li Ya long ago, but because Li Ya was practicing a concealment technique, Guan could only pretend not to notice him. Senior Brother Li, why are you here? Guan asked with feigned surprise. Li Ya replied, I've been back for several years. I'm preparing to return to Kang Province for a while, then I'll come back for the Golden Ranking Tournament. Guan sighed. Always rushing around. Senior Brother Li, you must be extremely powerful now, right? Li Ya lifted his chin. Not extremely powerful, but taking a place in the top 10 of the Golden Ranking shouldn't be difficult. As expected of Senior Brother Li, the pride of our Xuan Valley. Of course, you haven't been injured in all these years? How could I? Since the last time we parted, I haven't shed a single drop of blood. Your senior brother is no longer the man he used to be, Li Ya answered seriously. He really loves boasting. Guan desperately wanted to hear Li Ya call him great-grandfather just once. Li Ya took two objects from his storage pouch, an invitation and a long wooden box. This is an invitation to the Golden Ranking Tournament. You should participate too, and inside this box is 10,000-year wood spirit ginseng. If you spend the next 5 years refining it, your spiritual energy will definitely undergo a transformation. It should help you achieve a decent ranking, Li Ya explained. Guan froze. Li Ya directly pushed both items into Guan's arms. You are not allowed to refuse. If you do, I'll be angry. With that, he let go, forcing Guan to hurriedly catch them. Li Ya turned to leave. You're leaving already? Guan quickly asked. Li Ya raised one hand and waved without turning around. Those who cultivate and seek the Tao have no time for idle chatter. If you want to see me again, then perform well at the Golden Ranking Tournament. He leaped into the air, transformed into a streak of sword light, crossed the mountains, and vanished from sight. Guan stared at the invitation in his hand for a long while without speaking. On a nearby mountain peak, Chu Jingfeng turned toward the direction Li Ya had disappeared and frowned. He remembered Li Ya. Back then, because Li Ya was a prince, Chu Jingfeng had spoken with him several times and even encouraged him to cultivate diligently. Many years had passed. Their identities and status were now worlds apart, and Chu Jingfeng was not the one standing above. Guan shook his head with a quiet laugh and put the items into his storage pouch. This fellow always tried to give him something whenever they met. It was almost as if Li Ya understood his personality, because every gift was something that could improve cultivation or aptitude. Another spring festival arrived. After nightfall, Xuan Valley was especially lively. Guan had just returned from the Third Medicine Valley. He sat with the disciples around a long table. Zhen Qin sat on his right, constantly refilling his wine, while telling him about recent events in the cultivation world. The heaven-hating divine sword appeared near the great Zhang dynasty, and threw the entire cultivation world into chaos. I heard the heaven-hating divine sword has already reached the transformation realm, and that demons and monsters travel beside its wielder. It sounds terrifying. I wonder if it could be Senior Brother Su Han. Toward the end, Zhen Qin could not help sighing. Whenever Su Han was mentioned, sadness appeared on her face. They had once been so close, yet now they stood on opposite sides of the righteous and demonic paths. Guan said, "He is no longer your senior brother. Don't call him that in the future. It could bring trouble to you and to us." Zhen Qin wanted to argue, but seeing so many Medicine Valley disciples nearby, she remained silent. Guan began placing food into her bowl while watching the other disciples tease one another and laugh. After drinking a bowl of wine, Zhen Qin's spirits rose again. She began talking about Anhao. The moment she mentioned him, admiration covered her face and she launched into an endless stream of stories. Guan listened carefully. Then, suddenly, he sensed something. His gaze changed slightly. Only after Zhen Qin finished speaking did he say, "I'm going back to my room for a moment. Continue later. I still want to hear exactly what happened between Anhao and that demon from Myriad Yin's sect." With that, he stood and returned to his room. Zhen Qin suspected nothing. She simply raised her bowl and began drinking with Lu Jujia. Once inside his room, Guan activated the restrictions around it. Then, with a single step, he appeared 100 miles away. Inside a dark forest, 13 ghost-like figures were moving silently through the trees. 4 of them carried an enormous coffin. None noticed Guan appear nearby, hidden in the darkness and watching them. A group of Integration Realm cultivators. Guan repeatedly used lifespan detection on the 13 figures. he discovered that all 13 had identical cultivation and nearly identical ages. Every one of them was at the third layer of the integration realm. And all 13 carried the surname Li. Guan immediately thought of the 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path who had once shaken the cultivation world. What were these people doing near the Tai Xuan Sect? The Golden Ranking Tournament was still years away. Since they were moving slowly, Guan did not stop them immediately. He wanted to see what they intended to do. The enormous coffin caught his attention. His spiritual sense entered it and found a white skeleton inside. The bones gave off an indescribably sinister feeling. Resting on the skull was a dark golden crown. All its jewels had disappeared, leaving only empty sockets behind. Yet even so, the crown radiated an extraordinary aura. Roughly half an incense stick later, all 13 figures stopped at once. Li Shouyu, who stood at the front, turned and waved his hand. The four carrying the coffin lowered it to the ground and began opening the lid. The lid had barely shifted when a hand suddenly pressed down on it. All 13 looked toward the end of the coffin. Guan stood there, his entire body wrapped in dark purple-black demonic energy, his right hand firmly holding the lid shut. The forest fell silent. The 13 neither fled nor attacked. The other 12 simply turned toward Li Shouyu. Their bodies were shrouded in blackness like ghosts. Their true appearances could not be seen, making it impossible to read their emotions. Li Shouyu gave a slight nod, then dropped to his knees. The other 12 immediately followed. The 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path pay respects to Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Li Shu's voice was deep. It was not especially loud, but every word was clear and decisive. Guan was surprised. They had come looking for him? No wonder their actions had seemed strange rather than openly hostile. Guan said, "Give me one reason not to annihilate all of you." These 13 were most likely ghost cultivators. Ghostly energy surrounded them, yet they still possessed the vitality and blood of living humans. Li Shouyu replied, "We are the 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path. On the orders of the Epiphyllum Ghost Mother, we have come to present the Immortal King Crown to Sword Venerable Fu Dao and assist the Sword Venerable in reclaiming the immortal throne of the continent." The Epiphyllum Ghost Mother? Guan was even more astonished. Her cultivation was actually one minor realm below the 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path. How could she command them? Why? Guan asked. He sensed no hostility from the 13, suggesting they were probably telling the truth. Li Shu answered, "These were the Ghost Mother's instructions. She spent many years comprehending your sword intent within the Tai Xuan Sect and realized that you must have mastered the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword. This sword art was made famous by the Imperial Li family of the Taichung Dynasty, but in truth it was not created by the founding ancestor of the Li family. It came from the Immortal King of the Epiphyllum Cult, who was also the ancestor of the Ghost Mother. That is why the Ghost Mother entered the Taichung Dynasty in the first place. Before the Epiphyllum Cult could destroy the dynasty, she wanted to find her ancestors' inheritance. 200 years ago, the Ghost Mother came here as well. Unfortunately, the descendants of the Li family were mediocre. None could comprehend the Taikong Divine Shocking Sword, so the Ghost Mother had no choice but to hide. Guan's Taikong Divine Shocking Sword had indeed come through the Ti family. He simply had not expected the Ti family's founding ancestor to have a connection with the Epiphyllum Cult. "Your Ghost Mother wants the Taikong Divine Shocking Sword?" Guan asked. Li Shouyu replied, "The Ghost Mother wishes to invite you back to the Epiphyllum Cult. With the sword intent of the Taikong Divine Shocking Sword, she wants you to seize the position of Cult Master." Guan fell silent. What kind of scheme was this? Borrowing someone else's blade to kill an enemy? Guan pushed the coffin lid open with one palm. The coffin was extremely sturdy and contained countless hidden restrictions. It was almost certainly a magical artifact itself. His gaze fell upon the white skeleton within. There was not the slightest visible trace of life, yet the skeleton felt profoundly sinister. For safety, Guan still used lifespan detection on it. Evil Emperor, Great Ascension Realm, 5th layer, 7600 9999 9999. Well now, that was terrifying. It could still produce a lifespan reading, and its maximum lifespan was exactly the same as in Hao's. Guan kept his expression unchanged. He leaped lightly onto the edge of the coffin and looked down at the evil Emperor's skeleton. The 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path remained kneeling in complete silence. Guan's eyes suddenly widened. 2 cold beams of light shot from his pupils. Boom! The evil Emperor's skeleton instantly shattered into powder. Only the Immortal King Crown remained inside the coffin. Even the coffin floor had been pierced through by the path-breaking divine light. The 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path raised their heads, glanced once, then immediately lowered them again. A notification appeared before Guan. "You have successfully seized 320 years of lifespan from the evil Emperor. Great Ascension Realm, 5th layer." Guan inwardly let out a huge breath of relief. Damn, that nearly scared him to death. Who could have imagined that a pile of white bones was still alive? And at the 5th layer of the Great Ascension realm, no less. In that instant, countless possibilities had flashed through Guan's mind. He even felt that he might have just eliminated a future catastrophe for all living beings. A title like Evil Emperor did not exactly sound like it belonged to a decent man, and the fact that he had pretended to be dead while hiding inside a coffin made it obvious he had been plotting something enormous. Guan extended a hand and pulled the Immortal King Crown toward his palm. He did not touch it directly. Instead, he wrapped it in spiritual energy to prevent any physical contact. Then he looked at Li Shouyu. "Do you know of the Evil Emperor?" Li Shouyu froze for a moment before hurriedly answering, "I will not hide it. Those white bones were indeed the remains of the Evil Emperor. 5,000 years ago, the Epiphyllum Cult fell into internal chaos. The Evil Emperor was ambushed by treacherous enemies and poisoned, leaving him unable to gather his spiritual energy. In desperation, he put on the Immortal King Crown. His life force was immediately drained dry, reducing him to white bones. Because of that, the Immortal King Crown was classified as a cursed artifact within the Epiphyllum Cult, and no one has dared touch it since. If that is true, you still dared bring it before me?" Guan's voice carried bone-chilling, killing intent. Li Shouyu did not panic. If one has mastered the Tai Xuan Divine Shocking Sword, the Immortal King Crown will sense that sword intent and recognize its master. The one who forged this crown was the very person who created the Tai Xuan Divine Shocking Sword. Guan continued, "What is the relationship between the Epiphyllum Ghost Mother and the Evil Emperor?" "The Ghost Mother is a descendant of the Evil Emperor, and she dares bring her ancestors' remains before me? Is she not afraid of disrespecting him?" "The Ghost Mother despises her own bloodline. When she was young, her father refined her into a malicious ghost. That is why she sought the descendants of the Li family instead. The Li family shares no bloodline with her. Their founding ancestor was merely a disciple of the Epiphyllum Cult. She wants another inheritor of the Tai Kang Divine Shocking Sword to seize the position of Cult Master and complete her revenge." "How were you so certain you would find me?" "The Ghost Mother said that as long as we approached the outer Sect City, where Heaven Mending Platform stands, even if we perfectly concealed our cultivation, you would still notice us. The difference in cultivation between us is simply too great." Li Shouyu's concealment art truly was impressive. Even now, none of them had leaked the slightest trace of aura, but Guan could still see through them. He continued questioning them, and Li Shouyu answered each question in turn. After the time it took an incense stick to burn, Guan finally said, "I will accept the Immortal King Crown. You may leave." Li Shouyu turned his palm over, revealing a short flute. "This is the Nine Nether flute. If you blow it, we will immediately come to await your orders. From this day forward, you are the cult master of the Epiphyllum Cult, at least in our hearts." Guan lightly waved his hand and pulled the flute over. He thoroughly examined it with his spiritual sense, confirming that it contained no surveillance restrictions, reverse tracking marks, or anything similar before placing it into his storage pouch. Then he stepped down from the coffin and signaled for the 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path to leave. All 13 bowed to him together before lifting the coffin and departing. Guan did not immediately return to the valley. Instead, he sat beneath a tree with the Immortal King Crown placed in front of him. According to Li Shouyu, tens of thousands of years ago, an immortal dynasty had existed in the mortal world, an era when everyone could cultivate. There had been no emperors then. The ruler of the immortal dynasty called himself the Immortal King and governed the immortals and gods across the continent. Then calamity struck. Natural disasters appeared without end. Cultivators repeatedly suffered heart demons. Plagues spread everywhere. From the height of its prosperity to total destruction, the immortal dynasty lasted only another 10 years. The Immortal King survived, but his dynasty did not. After that, he no longer dared call himself an immortal, nor did he dare challenge heavenly might. His descendants later founded the Epiphyllum Cult. One generation's cult master created the Tai Kang Divine Shocking Sword. Its sword intent shocked the heavens and drew down heavenly tribulation, which was why it came to bear the name God-Shocking. That cult master believed he had reached the same level as his Immortal King ancestor. But if that were true, why was immortality still beyond him? When his final calamity approached, he used his own cultivation to forge the Immortal King Crown. The crown contained the power of the Immortal King. Generation after generation of Epiphyllum cult masters had studied it, yet none managed to subdue it. Instead, those who tried were followed by misfortune. Guan examined the Immortal King Crown with his spiritual sense. Even with cultivation at the 9th layer of the Great Ascension realm, he could not penetrate its interior. Nor did he dare test it with his sword intent. Even if Li Shouyu had been telling the truth, that method might still be wrong. After all, no one had ever succeeded before. The more Guan thought about it, the more sinister the crown seemed. it was better not to keep it near himself. He stood, used the limitless freedom step, and quickly entered the North Sea mountain range. Then he dove all the way to the bottom of the North Sea, and buried both the Immortal King Crown and the short flute deep in the mud beneath the seabed. He placed several restrictions around them as well. He could study them after breaking through several more major realms. In any case, Guan had no need to borrow the Immortal King Crown's power. Once everything was done, he quickly returned to Xuan Valley and continued celebrating the new year with the disciples. After the 13 fiends of the Nine Nether Path departed, Guan's life returned to peace. No one came to disturb him again. 3 years passed quickly. Guan turned 70. One day in Xianxia Valley, Guan finished harvesting a batch of medicinal herbs. In a good mood, he personally carried them into the pavilion warehouse. The moment he stepped back outside, he saw Lu Xian walking toward him. The instant Lu Xian saw Guan, his expression became awkward. Ever since being defeated by Guan, he had cultivated bitterly day and night. His cultivation had risen at a terrifying speed, and he was now at the 6th layer of the nascent soul realm. 99 years old and already at the 6th layer of the nascent soul realm. That was truly astonishing. Yet Lu Xian still felt like a failure. Even after consuming so many pills, he had ultimately failed to reach the divine transformation realm before the age of 100. "Are you participating in the golden ranking tournament?" Lu Xian asked as he approached. Guan smiled. "Why would I? With my talent, I would only embarrass myself." The corner of Lu Xian's mouth twitched. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm planning to participate. 3 years ago, one night, I suddenly felt the pressure on me lessen tremendously. In the 3 years since, heart demons and strange dreams have stopped affecting me. I might as well attend the golden ranking tournament and relax a little." "Relax? The people facing you are the ones who will suffer." Guan cursed inwardly. Then he sensed the remnants of souls within Lu Xian's body. Huh? One remnant soul was missing. There had been 7 before. Now only 6 remained. 3 years ago, that night? Suddenly thought of something. Could the evil emperor have left a fragment of his soul inside Lu Xian as well? That made no sense. What connection could the evil emperor possibly have with Lu Xian? The evil emperor had been a long-dead cult master of the Epiphyllum Cult, while Lu Xian was Lu Baitian's biological son. Wait, could Lu Baitian somehow be connected to the Epiphyllum Cult? Guan merely entertained the suspicion. He had no intention of probing the thoughts of Lu Baitian or Lu Xian. Whatever their true identities were, whatever schemes they might be hiding, as long as none of it affected him, he could not be bothered to interfere. The human heart was already difficult enough to understand. If he tried to investigate everyone around him, how exhausting would that be? Guan and Lu Xian continued chatting. These days, Lu Xian treated him with great respect, and did not dare show even the slightest carelessness. They spoke for quite a while before Guan finally left. The people of the valley were already accustomed to him never spending the night in Xianxia Valley. After Guan departed, Lu Xian sought out Yi Liu Yun and began sparring with him in preparation for the golden ranking tournament. Only about 2 years remained until the tournament. Time flowed on. The Nine Dynasties enjoyed a rare period of peace, while the Tai Xuan Sect's golden ranking tournament drew the attention of the entire world and gradually became a grand event unseen in a century. 2 years later, as the tournament approached, cultivators flew across the skies above Xuan Valley every single day. Unlike before, the Tai Xuan Sect had dispatched large numbers of disciples to patrol. Among them were even outer sect servant disciples, all part of the effort to maintain the sect's image as the orthodox leader of the cultivation world. At 72 years old, Guan was receiving Ye Lan inside his pavilion. The first group of disciples who had gone to the road of the 9 netherworlds for training had all returned. Every one of them was preparing to enter the golden ranking tournament and bring glory to the Tai Xuan Sect. After so many years apart, Yi Lan's aura had grown much deeper. She now carried the bearing of a genuine female genius. She had remembered Guan's words and continued practicing the Dao evolution art, so her cultivation had not increased at all. The two sat facing each other and talked. Yi Lan described many interesting things she had seen along the road of the 9 netherworlds, and Guan listened with great interest. Rather than calling it a road, it would be more accurate to call the road of the 9 netherworlds a secret realm. Demons and ghosts roamed inside it, and it possessed an entire ecosystem of its own, producing many strange heavenly treasures. Yi Lan also said she had encountered cultivators and demon races who did not belong to any of the 9 dynasties. Listening to her descriptions, Guan imagined countless scenes in his mind and found them fascinating. After they had talked for a full hour, Guan finally asked, "Are you planning to participate in the golden ranking tournament?" Yi Lan nodded. "Yes. The elder gave me an invitation. All 100 disciples who return from the road of the 9 netherworlds have to participate. The first golden ranking tournament must make a strong impression. We cannot allow the Tai Xuan Sect to lose face." Guan blinked helplessly, so he still had not found anyone to give his invitation to. Shenzhen Guyu and Zuo Lin all had invitations already, while the disciples in his medicine valleys had ordinary talent. Participating would be a waste of effort and might even bring unnecessary trouble. Senior brother, do you want to participate? Your cultivation may not be impressive, but your actual combat ability is definitely not ordinary, Yilan said with a soft smile. She still remembered how powerful Guan's leg techniques were. His cultivation had barely grown, so she assumed he must have spent most of his time practicing combat techniques instead. Guan said helplessly, I can't even defeat you. Wouldn't entering the golden ranking tournament just be asking for punishment? Hearing that, Yilan stopped persuading him, and instead began talking about recent events in the cultivation world. She did not leave Xuan Valley until sunset. Guan stood on the balcony with a smile on his face. Yilan's maximum lifespan had increased by 1 year. It was almost nothing, but it proved that the Dao evolution art truly had some effect. Chu Jingfeng, Lu Jiujia, and Xiao Xuan had not experienced any increase at all. Perhaps it depended on how seriously they practiced. Besides, the spiritual energy within the road of the 9 netherworlds was far denser than anything a medicine valley could provide. Guan returned to his room and continued studying the Ziwei formation records. The book had steadily deepened his understanding of formations, bringing him closer and closer to what a true Great Ascension Realm cultivator ought to possess. A Great Ascension Realm expert was not merely someone with high cultivation. Such cultivators usually had vast life experience and deep knowledge of auxiliary paths as well. Since Guan did not need to spend time cultivating normally, he could use that time to accumulate knowledge in other areas. That night, Guan quietly entered the North Sea mountain range. He hid beneath a tree, activated his lifespan barrier, and invested 50,000 years of lifespan into the Dao evolution art. If the technique truly had value, then he might as well strengthen it further. Lines of notifications flashed wildly before him. Eventually, the Dao evolution art advanced into the Dao profound art. It had required only 20,000 years of lifespan to evolve. The remaining 30,000 years had simply deepened his mastery. Guan immediately invested another 50,000 years. This time, after 20,000 years of simulated cultivation, the Dao profound art advanced again into the innate reincarnation art. The appearance of the words innate so quickly proved that the Dao evolution art had never been a low-level technique to begin with. No wonder even Yilan and Wuxin had been able to cultivate it successfully. Later in the evolution, the innate reincarnation art even allowed him to comprehend a divine ability called Return to Oisian Divine Dao. Guan began receiving the inheritance of the innate reincarnation art. Spiritual energy from the earth flooded into his body while enormous memories filled his mind. The innate reincarnation art contained all the profundity of the Dao evolution art, but extended the principle of accumulating cultivation across multiple lifetimes. Once someone cultivated the innate reincarnation art, their cultivation realm would stop advancing normally. Instead, they would accumulate spiritual energy to transform their aptitude. Unlike the Dao evolution art, it was not limited to a single release in one lifetime. The transformation could be repeated again and again, and the more cultivation one accumulated before each release, the greater the transformation in aptitude. That was not all. The innate reincarnation art could also create a soul imprint. After the cultivator died and reincarnated, once their next life reached maturity, memories of the technique would awaken again. They could accumulate across generation after generation, continuing until they finally became immortal, or until their soul was completely destroyed somewhere along the path, and the cycle of reincarnation was severed. Return to Oisian Divine Dao was an extremely domineering sealing divine ability. It could suppress a living being's cultivation down to a designated realm, or even seal it completely, reducing the target to an ordinary mortal with no cultivation whatsoever. Once sealed by this divine ability, only Return to Oisian Divine Dao itself could safely undo it. Even if a great expert with cultivation far beyond Guan tried to force the seal open, the target's spiritual energy would become chaotic, causing their cultivation to erupt uncontrollably and kill them on the spot. After fully understanding the ability, Guan loved it. This was exactly the kind of method he had been lacking. As for the innate reincarnation art, he considered himself to have mastered it. He had no interest in personally spending time cultivating it further. He did not intend to compete across 1,000 or 10,000 reincarnations. He would fight for this life alone, but the technique could be given to people he cared about. Through the inherited memories of the innate reincarnation art, Guan also learned a cruel truth. The Immortal Dao contained 9 great gates, and every gate was a form of suffering. The first was Nirvana. Nirvana was the realm where mortal life truly transcended mortality. Before Nirvana, one's lifespan could never exceed 10,000 years. Only after reaching nirvana would life undergo a fundamental transformation, causing lifespan to increase dramatically. Guan suddenly understood something. Maximum lifespan might not merely represent aptitude, it could also represent the longest span of time a living being was destined to exist in this world, the natural limit written into their life. Take Hao, for example. He had nearly 10,000 years available to reach the nirvana realm. Yi Lan, meanwhile, had less than 200. No matter how many opportunities the latter obtained, she would still be fighting against an overwhelming disadvantage. The Dao evolution art could extend her available time, but only to a limited degree. Even if Yi Lan mastered the innate reincarnation art, her maximum lifespan might only multiply several times. Guan slowly opened his eyes, his gaze deep and distant. Heavenly fate. Summer arrived, and the Tai Xuan Sect's golden ranking tournament began exactly as scheduled. Every participant had to be under 500 years old. The Tai Xuan Sect specifically examined their bone age before allowing them to enter. Li Ya had given Guan an invitation, and Guan truly did not know who else to give it to. Not wanting to waste it, he decided to register himself. Thanks to his youthful appearance despite being 72 years old, the registration process went smoothly. The Golden Ranking Tournament used one-on-one matches. There was no fixed duration. The competition would continue until the brackets were completed. The Tai Xuan Sect would treat injured participants so that everyone could remain as close as possible to peak condition. Special formations were also used to suppress the higher cultivation participant down to the realm of their opponent, ensuring fairness between cultivation levels. When the tournament began, Guan sat on a rooftop in the outer sect to watch. Yi Lan sat across from him, a small table between them covered with spiritual melons, spirit fruits, and fine wine. High above the outer sect city floated an enormous screen of light displaying the ongoing battle. Guan had no idea who the two fighters were, but that did not stop him from enjoying the spectacle. As Yi Lan peeled fruit for him, she complained, "Senior brother, the technique you gave me is so difficult. It's even harder than before. I have no idea when I'll finally master it." Guan replied, "Cultivation was never supposed to be easy. The Dao evolution art could at most double one's maximum lifespan. The innate reincarnation art, however, could multiply it several times. If Yi Lan successfully mastered it, living to 800 years old in this life might not be impossible. Given her natural aptitude, that would already be an extraordinary blessing from heaven." Yi Lan smiled. "I'll definitely keep practicing, don't worry." At that moment, deafening cheers shook the city. The first battle had ended. "The winner is Duanshu of Flame Sect from the Great Zhao Dynasty." Guzong's voice came from the enormous screen, setting the city buzzing with discussion. Yi Lan looked toward the screen and smiled. "He really is impressive." Guan nodded and took a sip of wine. "Brother Gu!" A voice suddenly called from nearby. Guan and Yi Lan both turned. Wu Ju stood on a rooftop not far away, staring at the two of them with an ugly expression. 5 years had passed. Wu Ju was still at the 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm, but his blood vitality was completely different from before. After being left alone for 5 years, his maximum lifespan must have soared, right? Guan felt as though he were opening a mystery box. He carefully used lifespan detection. Wu Ju, Foundation Establishment Realm, 9th Layer, 74, 357, 600. 7,600 years. Excellent. He had completely transformed into a dragon. Wu Ju suddenly appeared on the rooftop where Guan and Yi Lan sat, 7 steps away. He frowned. "Who is this woman? How can you face Miss Shen after this?" The moment those words left his mouth, Yi Lan narrowed her eyes and turned to Guan. "Who is Miss Shen?" Guan immediately felt a headache coming on. "This is my junior sister, Yi Lan. What is Miss Shen compared to her? Miss Shen and I only know each other casually." Yi Lan's expression softened. Wu Ju snapped, "Forget Miss Shen. Why didn't you come find me after you finished your business?" Yi Lan froze. She had assumed Wu Ju was connected to Miss Shen and had come specifically to defend her. Why had his grievance suddenly changed direction so quickly? Guan shook his head. "Why are you shouting? I simply didn't want to disturb your cultivation." "What, are you planning to hit me?" Wu Ju's face turned red with frustration. "How could I possibly hit you?" Yi Lan could sense that Wu Ju was extraordinary. Seeing how flustered he became around Guan only made her more curious about their relationship. Guan invited him to sit. Though clearly reluctant, Wu Ju still sat beside him. "Junior sister, this is my sworn brother Wu Ju. He is also participating in the Golden Ranking Tournament," Guan introduced. Yi Lan nodded politely toward him. Wu Ju scratched his head. "I only got to participate because Brother Gu gave me an invitation." Yi Lan glanced at Guan with a questioning look. Senior brother really does have impressive connections. The three drank fruit wine while watching the tournament. None of them had matches scheduled during the opening days, so they simply enjoyed the spectacle. Yi Lan and Wu Ju gradually became more familiar, and Wu Ju stopped being as stiff around her. It was not until the 5th day that Wu Ju's turn finally arrived. After he left, Yi Lan asked curiously, "Senior brother, whose disciple is he? He feels anything but ordinary." She had broad experience and could tell at a glance that Wu Ju was not simple. After repeated enlightenment, his entire bearing had changed. His appearance was ordinary and his clothing plain, yet he carried a presence that was difficult to forget. His master passed away. He has been an orphan since childhood. We became close almost as soon as we met, and I'm basically his only friend. 5 years ago, I deliberately stopped visiting him. That is why he was so angry just now, Guan explained. Yi Lan felt sympathy for Wu Zhou, but she also found the situation amusing. She sighed. "Senior brother, you really are what? Nothing." Yi Lan turned her attention back to the giant screen in the sky. Guan followed her gaze. The two fighters shown there were clearly exceptional. One was a young Daoist in green robes. The other wore battle armor and wielded a long weapon. With one glance, Guan could tell both were at much higher realms than the previous contestants. The green-robed Daoist was probably in the divine transformation realm, while the armored man was a void-crossing realm cultivator. Both were under 500 years old. They were undoubtedly top-tier geniuses. Beyond the core formation realm, sheer resources alone were no longer enough to force advancement. Everyone expected a spectacular exchange. Instead, the green-robed Daoist raised one hand and formed a seal. A single glowing character Dao appeared in mid-air, radiating green light. It expanded until it was hundreds of feet across, like a mountain descending from the sky, then slammed into the armored cultivator at astonishing speed. The armored man spat blood and was hurled backward, instantly losing the ability to continue fighting. Although his cultivation had been suppressed to the divine transformation realm, seeing him defeated so quickly still surprised Guan. With his experience, Guan could tell that the green-robed Daoist seal had already reached the level of a true divine ability. One move, one defeat. The entire city erupted into discussion. The winner is perfected Xuanmiao of Three Pure Ones Mountain, representing the Nine Dynasty. An elder's voice rang out from the giant screen, causing everyone to remember the name of the green-robed Daoist. Yeslin sighed. Three Pure Ones Mountain really is impressive. I saw some of their people while traveling along the road of the 9 Netherworlds. Three Pure Ones Mountain is the leading sect of the Nine Dynasty. They do not have many disciples, but every one of them is extremely powerful. I've even heard that an immortal once appeared there, though I have no idea whether that is true. Guan silently remembered the sect's name. Perfected Xuanmiao's Dao seal was genuinely powerful. That alone was enough to reveal how deep the inheritance of Three Pure Ones Mountain truly ran. Much later, it was finally Wu Jue's turn. Foundation establishment realm battles were usually far less dramatic than the one involving perfected Xuanmiao. So many spectators were not expecting much. But the instant Wu Jue threw his first punch, an earth-shaking aura exploded from him, and drew the attention of the entire city. His fist erupted like the sun itself. The burning pressure of the punch made it almost impossible for his opponent to resist. Every strike Wu Zhou threw was packed with overwhelming force and carried an unmistakably domineering momentum. After 8 punches, his opponent collapsed to the ground, coughing blood without end. The winner is Wu Zhou of the Tai Xuan Sect, representing the Tai Kang Dynasty. The city immediately filled with discussion about him. Yi Lan stared in stunned silence. She had known Wu Zhou was extraordinary, but she had never expected him to be this powerful. Guan's lips curled upward. He knew Wu Zhou's legendary life was finally about to begin. That Sunset Fist manual was clearly an ordinary technique. Yet Wu Zhou had practiced it all the way to the transformation realm, and it even showed signs of evolving further. It seemed enlightenment could deepen one's comprehension of combat techniques as well. That afternoon, inside the pavilion of the Third Medicine Valley, Guan met with Lu Baitian. They had not seen each other for several months, yet Lu Baitian remained as energetic as ever, smiling brightly. He turned his right hand over, revealing a pearl in his palm. This is a supreme-grade magical artifact called the Heavenly Shadow Pearl. Refine it over the next 2 days, then use it when you compete at the end of the month. Guan accepted the pearl and did not know whether to laugh or cry. You actually want me to win? Over the past few days, several tournament participants had relied heavily on magical artifacts to achieve victory. According to the rules, each competitor could bring only one magical artifact or one formation set. The rule existed to preserve fairness because sword cultivators, saber cultivators, formation cultivators, and many others depended on external tools. Banning them outright would have been unfair in the opposite direction. Even with the one-item restriction, however, there had already been cases where cultivators won almost entirely because of their artifacts, drawing criticism throughout the cities. Lu Baitian smiled. I have already arranged your opponents and your match times. There is still enough time. I do not expect you to become famous throughout the world. But if you can enter the top 500, That would at least give you a respectable foundation. With geniuses from all 9 dynasties gathered together, anyone entering the top 500 could naturally be called an elite among elites. Guan had originally intended to participate for fun. He had not expected Lu Baitian to go this far. Sect Master, fairness, fairness. Do not forget those 2 words. Guan reminded him helplessly. Lu Baitian really was shameless when it came to getting what he wanted. Then again, he had always been like this. Even his cultivation techniques had a suspiciously unorthodox flavor. Lu Baitian did not agree at all. How is it unfair? Which descendant of a great clan does not rely on family resources? I give you a magical artifact. They have elders helping them too. As for arranging your opponents, I am only making your luck slightly better. I am not harming anyone. Victory and defeat still depend on each person's own ability. Guan rubbed the heavenly shadow pearl between his fingers, still hesitating. As long as you enter the top 500, I will reward you with a 6th rank spirit tree, Lu Baitian said seriously. Guan immediately tightened his grip around the pearl. Ah, if that is the case, I suppose I can only give it everything I have. Lu Baitian stood and laughed. Good, refine the remaining restrictions as soon as possible. I already dealt with the most difficult one. The rest should not trouble you. Then he left the pavilion. Guan did not escort him out. He simply stared at the heavenly shadow pearl in his hand, lost in thought. The golden ranking tournament was expected to continue for several months. Guan still had medicine valleys to manage, so he could not spend every day watching matches. Yilan and Wu Jue also needed to prepare for their own battles. It was not until the end of the month that Guan finally received notice of his opponent. The golden ranking token used to exchange for an invitation was itself a communication artifact. Early that morning, it produced a voice instructing him to report to the waiting area. Every outer sect city had a teleportation formation connected to the tournament grounds, so finding one was easy. After teleporting to the venue, Guan waited patiently. The tournament grounds occupied a wide valley divided into 2 sections. One half was the waiting area. The other half was the battlefield. The fighting ground stretched for several miles and was surrounded by mountain formations that isolated it from the outside. Guan, you're participating too? Aren't you afraid someone will beat you half to death? A light laugh came from nearby. Guan did not even need to turn around to know Shenzhen was walking toward him. I thought I would try, he replied calmly. Recently, he had become increasingly dissatisfied with the plot of Tai Xuan's Secret Chronicle. In the latest chapters, the character named Guan bullied a weak young woman. Even though the situation was ultimately a misunderstanding, the character had behaved far too domineeringly, which had lowered Guan's opinion of Shenzhen considerably. Shenzhen seemed perfectly aware of this, but did not care about his attitude. Instead, she smiled. If you meet me, I won't show mercy. Of course, if you say a few nice things to me, I might consider letting you win. A true man would never accept such humiliation from you. Guan glanced at her and snorted. Shenzhen burst out laughing and lightly bumped his shoulder with hers. Stop being angry. That book is almost finished anyway. I'm getting bored of it too. Once the golden ranking tournament ends, I plan to enter seclusion. You might not see me again for several decades. Guan's expression softened. Did you comprehend something from that painting? Exactly. I may be close to attaining the Dao. Shenzhen smiled proudly, always showing off. Guan began chatting casually with her while they waited for their turns. Then suddenly, a woman appeared through the teleportation formation, and her aura immediately caught Guan's attention. The Epiphyllum Ghost Mother. Why was she here? Did no one in the Tai Xuan Sect guard the entrances? Could she simply come and go whenever she pleased? Guan complained inwardly without looking toward her. Although the Epiphyllum Ghost Mother had apparently wanted to make him cult master, he still felt deeply conflicted about her. After all, this was the woman who had dared send a 5th-layer Great Ascension Realm monster directly to him. If not for his lifespan detection ability, he never would have realized the evil emperor was still alive. Far too dangerous. The Epiphyllum Ghost Mother now wore the body of a completely different woman, likely through some form of possession technique. She did not notice Guan either. Perhaps she no longer remembered him at all. Half an hour later, Shenzhen won her match and was teleported out of the valley. Guan had to wait another full hour before his own turn arrived. His opponent was weak, merely a core formation realm cultivator. Once the man's cultivation was suppressed to the Foundation Establishment realm, Guan deliberately acted through more than 10 exchanges before finally using the Heavenly Shadow Pearl to defeat him. For the spectators, the match was painfully boring. Only a small number of people even remembered Guan afterward, and so time passed. Guan fought 3 matches in total and everyone appeared evenly matched. Each time, he won by the narrowest possible margin. By this stage of the tournament, certain competitors were already being favored by the crowd. The Tai Xuan Sect did not mind how long the event lasted. During these months, the spirit stone revenue of its cities had multiplied several times over. The sect was practically printing money. After 3 months of competition, a group of true geniuses had begun standing out. The most dazzling was An Hao. No one could compare to him. He had not even used the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword yet. He relied only on spells learned within the Tai Xuan Sect, and still overwhelmed every opponent with brute superiority, breaking 10,000 techniques with sheer force. Below him were Luxian, perfected Xuan Miao, and several other dynasty-level geniuses. Each of the 9 dynasties had produced at least one figure who became famous through the Golden Ranking Tournament. Ji Xiaoyu did not participate, but other descendants of the Ji clan still displayed tremendous strength. News of the tournament spread throughout the 9 dynasties and drew the attention of cultivators everywhere. The name of the Tai Xuan Sect rose with it, becoming increasingly famous across the other 8 dynasties. Within the Taikong dynasty, sects from those 8 dynasties also gained opportunities to spread their own reputations. Perhaps that was one reason they had been willing to cooperate in the first place. To Guan, however, the Golden Ranking Tournament was ultimately just entertainment. He did not care much about his own placement. At first, everything had seemed fresh and exciting, but as his interest faded, he returned most of his attention to planting and harvesting. Then one day, internal tournament news leaked early. An Hao versus Li Ya. Li Ya had also shown enough strength to prove himself, and many already considered him capable of reaching the top 100. For him to encounter An Hao, the overwhelming favorite for first place, so early naturally attracted enormous attention. Guan was in the 3rd Medicine Valley when he heard disciples flying overhead on their swords, loudly spreading the news. His interest immediately rose, and he decided to head to the outer sect city to watch. Disciples were rushing toward the city from every direction. Seeing that, Guan could not help sighing. Lu Baitian had finally mastered the art of marketing. Guan himself was looking forward to the battle. Li Ya and An Hao. Who was stronger? Both of their lives looked like those of protagonists favored by heavenly fate, though the paths they had walked were completely different. On the battle platform, Li Ya slowly drew the North Sea heavy sword from his back. He wore black robes. His expression was cold, and his eyes burned with fighting intent as he stared at the figure more than 100 yards away. His opponent was An Hao. An Hao stood straight and proud in luxurious blue robes, a purple and gold silk belt at his waist. His long hair was fixed beneath a silver crown decorated with a golden phoenix. Even the guards on his wrists were exquisitely crafted. A light breeze stirred the strands of black hair at his temples. His smile was bright and confident. He lifted his chin slightly and looked at Li Ya with undisguised contempt. Until now, you've relied almost entirely on the weight of that sword to crush your opponents. This time you're facing me. Don't bother hiding your real strength. Li Ya asked. And how? How old are you this year? 40. Why? 40 years old. 9th layer of the core formation realm. Li Ya fell silent. That age and cultivation level were enough to make anyone jealous. He took a deep breath, raised the North Sea heavy sword, and said, "Then, let me see just how powerful the #1 genius of the Tai Xuan Sect truly is." The moment he finished speaking, he stepped forward. In only 3 strides, he crossed the entire distance and appeared before An Hao, bringing the massive sword down in a brutal slash. The heavy blade tore through the air and created a violent pressure wave. An Hao raised 2 fingers like a sword. Sword energy shot from his fingertips and dissolved Li Ya's attack. Sword light flashed, sword energy scattered everywhere. The 2 figures collided and crossed again and again, creating a sharp, violent battle that sent endless cheers through the outer sect city. Guan stood on a rooftop and looked up at the projected battle. Wu Ju suddenly appeared beside him and watched the giant screen as well. These 2 really are powerful, he sighed. Of course, they are famous geniuses of the Tai Xuan Sect, Guan replied. Both An Hao and Li Ya were in the core formation realm, yet their battle was far more spectacular than the fights of ordinary core formation geniuses. Li Ya was fast and overwhelmingly powerful, carrying a savage momentum that seemed capable of splitting mountains and severing rivers. An Hao, by contrast, moved with effortless elegance. No matter how fierce Li Ya's sword's attacks became, he remained perfectly composed. Their movement techniques were so fast that most disciples in the outer sect city could not follow them at all. The 2 figures constantly shifted positions, and only the streaks of sword light revealed where they had passed. Clang! An Hao spun and swept one hand downward. Sword energy from his fingers pressed onto Li Ya so heavily that his knees bent. The North Sea heavy sword shook above his head, revealing just how monstrous An Hao's physical strength truly was. Li Ya had never expected An Hao to possess strength comparable to his own after he had consumed the Dragon Elephant Divine Essence. The pressure on him instantly doubled. Boom! A terrifying sword intent erupted and blasted An Hao backward. An Hao flipped through the air and landed lightly 100 yards away. He looked at Li Ya in surprise. Then a smile spread across his face, a wild smile. The giant viewing screen transmitted part of the pressure from the battle so spectators could feel that what they were watching was real. The instant Li Ya's sword intent erupted, the entire Tai Xuan Sect exploded with excitement. That's Sword Venerable Fu Dao's sword intent. Li Ya actually received Sword Venerable Fu Dao's inheritance? I spent several days at Heaven Mending Platform. There's no mistake, that is definitely Sword Venerable Fu Dao's sword intent. Li Ya is incredible. I never expected him to be the strongest among the Imperial disciples. He's far stronger than even his elder sister Li Xuanyu. The city where Guan stood erupted into earth-shaking commotion. Li Ya's use of the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword had shocked countless people. Wu Jua felt the sword intent and exclaimed in awe, "That's incredible. I feel like defeating him would not be easy." Guan could not help glancing at him. Not easy? That was all? Wrapped in sword intent, Li Ya straightened and pointed his sword toward Anhao in the distance. His black hair whipped in the wind, his robes snapping behind him. His entire presence changed, and his expression became frighteningly cold. The battle is only truly beginning now. Li Ya's voice was icy. He had never expected to reveal the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword so early. He could only blame his bad luck for encountering Anhao ahead of schedule. The moment he used the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword, he felt the battle should already be decided. Anhao had yet to reveal any especially powerful techniques, but no ordinary spell, no matter how profound, could compare with the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword. News that Anhao had previously comprehended sword intent had been sealed within the sect. Li Ya spent most of his time outside and knew nothing about Anhao's true methods. Yet, when he saw Anhao smiling, doubt flickered through his heart. Had this man gone mad? Anhao casually brushed the dust from his robe, and the corner of his mouth rose. Boom! A vast sword intent erupted from his body far stronger than Li Ya's, and the entire valley trembled. Wild sword energy gathered above Anhao's head, forming an enormous face that looked down upon Li Ya. Before that gigantic sword energy visage, Li Ya seemed tiny. His own sword aura suddenly looked insignificant. How is that possible? How do you know the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword too? Li Ya cried out, disbelief covering his face. Countless people throughout the Outer Sect city shouted in shock as well. Anhao had also received Sword Venerable Fu Dao's inheritance. On Heaven Mending Platform, the Epiphyllum Ghost Mother stared at the screen overhead, her delicate brows drawing together as shock appeared in her eyes. The Taichung Divine Shocking Sword had vanished from the world for thousands of years. And now, 3 inheritors had appeared almost at once? The Ghost Mother understood the origins of the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword better than almost anyone, and even she was frightened. At the same time, her reverence towards Sword Venerable Fu Dao deepened. She could tell that both young men being able to use the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword had to be connected to him. Inside the projected battlefield, Anhao rose into the air and looked arrogantly down at Li Ya. "If we come from the same lineage, then let us see whose sword intent is stronger." He raised his right hand, palm facing Li Ya. The smile vanished from his face. The instant Li Ya used the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword, Anhao had felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. He concluded that Li Ya must also be a disciple of his master. But even if they were fellow disciples, he would show no mercy. He and Anhao had been born to become the strongest. Every opponent had to bow beneath his feet. His eyes sharpened. The enormous sword energy face above him opened its eyes. Countless sword projections poured forth like a silver river across the heavens, magnificent and unstoppable. Li Ya gripped his sword with both hands and unleashed the strongest attack he knew. His teeth clenched, his face twisted, and he roared inwardly. "I cannot lose." The 2 sword intents collided. Sword light flooded the entire city. Wu Ju's face was illuminated by the brilliance as he stared in a daze. "Anhao is too strong. I'm not his opponent," he muttered. If he faced Li Ya, he still had some confidence. But Anhao's strength crushed even that confidence. Guan watched without changing expression. The progress of both Anhao and Li Ya pleased him greatly, but knowing Li Ya was about to be seriously injured made it difficult to feel happy. He even suspected Lu Baitian had arranged this match deliberately. Lu Baitian had never liked Li Xuandao. Had he intentionally placed Anhao against Li Xuandao's most beloved son? Whatever the truth, Li Ya's tournament journey would end here. He would not even reach the top 500. Several moments later, the sword pressure faded. The ground was shattered. Li Ya lay bloodied across the earth, his black robes torn to pieces, completely unable to stand. The winner is Anhao of the Tai Xuan Sect, representing the Taichung Dynasty. The elder's announcement sent the entire city into celebration. Everyone marveled at Anhao's power. Before this, he had never used a sword technique with such overwhelming spectacle, yet he had still defeated every opponent effortlessly. Now, everyone had finally witnessed how terrifying his sword energy and spiritual power truly were. He did not look like a core formation realm cultivator at all. Even calling him a nascent soul realm cultivator seemed insufficient. Guan turned to Wu Zhou. If you encounter An Hao, do not try to clash with him head-on. At the same realm, anyone who met An Hao would be eliminated. Even Wu Zhou, who had entered Enlightenment again and again, was no exception. Among all the tournament participants, perhaps only Guan himself could defeat An Hao, but he had no intention of doing so, and Lu Baitian would never arrange such a match anyway. You should do the same, Wu Zhou replied gloomily. Guan smiled. This fellow was rather amusing. News that An Hao had inherited Sword Venerable Fu Dao's legacies spread through the cultivation world like a storm. As for Li Ya's defeat, many believed he had merely comprehended some sword intent from heaven-mending platform, rather than receiving the true inheritance. Although both used the Taichung Divine Shocking Sword, Li Ya's sword intent was far weaker than An Hao's famed sword. Li Ya was quickly forgotten. After his defeat, Li Ya did not come to see Guan. He was probably recuperating in his cave dwelling and shutting himself away in frustration. 10 days later, in Xianxia Valley, Guan met Li Xuandao. Li Xuandao waved from afar, and Guan walked over to sit with him. Luxias, Yi Liuyun, and Luohun were already gathered around the table. When Guan arrived, Luohun tactfully stood and gave him the seat. How is Li Ya doing? Li Xuandao asked with a laugh, looking completely untroubled by his son's defeat. Guan noticed that his cultivation had risen again. He had reached the 3rd layer of the Void Crossing realm. In truth, Guan would have liked to see Li Xuandao participate in the Golden Ranking tournament. He suspected the man could have reached the top 10. Li Xuandao was not yet 300 years old, meaning he was fully eligible. To reach the 3rd layer of the Void Crossing realm before the age of 300 made him one of the greatest talents under heaven. I'm not sure. He hasn't come to see me either, Guan replied. Li Xuandao sighed. There is no shame in losing to An Hao. His reputation has already spread through the other 8 dynasties. Everyone under heaven recognizes his talent. Even ignoring combat strength, An Hao's breakthrough speed alone was unique under heaven. Zhang Jiang had reached core formation at 40 and considered herself an exceptional genius. An Hao, at 40, already had the ability to form his nascent soul. The only reason he had delayed was so the Golden Ranking tournament would not interfere with his progress. If An Hao entered the nascent soul realm at the 1st layer and faced a peak genius at the 9th layer of that realm, he might still win, but the battle would be exhausting. If both were instead brought down to the 9th layer of core formation, then An Hao had nothing to worry about. Guan nodded. An Hao really is powerful. Senior brother Li was simply unlucky. Luxian said quietly, it's fine. I'll avenge Li Ya. He had already fought 3 tournament matches, and no opponent had lasted more than 10 moves against him. Li Xuandao looked at Guan. Your disciple Yi Yan has been sent by me to 3 Pure Ones Mountain in the Chentang Dynasty for cultivation. When he returns, he will certainly have transformed completely. Yi Yan? Guan remembered the disciple who carried a spear everywhere. He had not expected the boy to receive such an opportunity. Of course, he also understood that Li Xuandao was deliberately informing him. Without Li Xuandao's arrangements, Ye Yan would never have received such a chance. Thank you, Uncle, Guan immediately said. Li Xuandao continued. Tell me, if I could win Sword Venerable Fu Dao to my side, would my imperial throne become completely secure? Guan replied. Even without him, your throne would remain secure. Li Xuandao burst out laughing. Neither Yi Liuyun nor Lu Xian laughed. They believed the same thing. Li Xuandao eventually stopped laughing and said, I already know who Sword Venerable Fu Dao is. Who? The question did not come from Guan. It came from Lu Xian. Yi Liuyun also looked at Li Xuandao curiously. Sword Venerable Fu Dao's reputation was simply too great. Some people even called him the strongest cultivator in all of Taichung. Li Xuandao smiled faintly. He has an extremely close relationship with Li Ya. Guan's heart trembled. How had he managed to guess that much? Lu Xian frowned. Li Ya? What kind of relationship? Li Xuandao shook his head. I cannot tell you the specific intelligence. I fear it would offend that old senior. Old senior? Guan inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. After that, Li Xuandao changed the subject and began discussing the geniuses who had risen to fame in the Golden Ranking tournament. He praised the Tai Xuan Sect heavily for organizing the event, and felt that Lu Baitian had finally become enlightened, no longer acting as stupidly and tyrannically as before. After chatting for an hour, Li Xuandao finally let Guan return to work. This time, he had brought another batch of high-grade saplings, which greatly interested Guan. The quality of medicinal plants in Xianxia Valley kept rising, indirectly proving that Li Xuandao's influence was growing stronger. Although every herb in Xianxia Valley technically belonged to Li Xuandao, Guan could harvest lifespan from them endlessly. Naturally, he hoped Li Xuandao would continue thriving. He also hoped Lu Baitian would continue thriving. Everyone should live together peacefully. Cultivation was a long road. Winning or losing in the moment did not matter. The one who lived until the end was the true winner. By late autumn, Guan barely managed to squeeze into the top 500 of the Golden Ranking tournament with the help of the Heavenly Shadow Pearl. For his later matches, he had already decided to lose. Although he had won many times, he never became famous. Every victory looked painfully difficult, his fighting style was unimpressive, and none of his opponents had much reputation to begin with. One afternoon in Xuan Valley, Guan was instructing Yi Lan in the innate reincarnation art. Yi Lan had already been eliminated from the tournament, but she was not discouraged. If anything, her determination had become stronger. The two spoke for several hours, and many of her doubts about the technique were resolved. "Senior brother, your mastery of this technique is incredibly deep. You must have practiced it very seriously. No wonder your cultivation hasn't increased," Yi Lan sighed. Her reverence towards Sword Venerable Fu Dao grew even stronger. Not only was his Sword Dao unfathomable, he also possessed such an extraordinary cultivation art. By now, she was convinced Sword Venerable Fu Dao was Guan's master. Years earlier, Guan had taken the Azure Rainbow Sword and sought Sword Venerable Fu Dao's help to save her. There had once been a time when she suspected Guan himself might be Sword Venerable Fu Dao. But after witnessing the realm of power Sword Venerable Fu Dao displayed, she could no longer reconcile that possibility with Guan's age. Guan did not deny her assumption. There could hardly be a better explanation. He raised his right hand and pulled a storage pouch over through the air, then handed it to her. "Take this back and cultivate properly." Yi Lan did not even inspect it. She simply tied it to her waist and stood. "Oh, right. Senior brother, recently you should probably keep some distance from senior brother Li Ya. The upper ranks are investigating every disciple of the Li family within the sect. Their exact intentions are unclear, but it is definitely not good." Guan looked visibly confused, yet still nodded and stood to see her off. The Tai Xuan Sect investigating disciples of the Li family did not worry him much. This was hardly the first time something like this had happened. The Tai Xuan Sect might be the leading righteous sect of the Taichung dynasty, but internal conflict had never disappeared. As for whether Li Ya would be harmed, Guan did not feel it appropriate to interfere. He could not watch Li Ya every moment of every day. Everyone had their own life to live. Whether the experiences were good or bad, as long as they survived them, they became part of their own path. Several days later, Guan returned to the Golden Ranking tournament. The moment he faced his next opponent, he directly surrendered, leaving the other cultivators stunned. 1 month later, the top 100 were finally decided. Only Wu Ju remained at the Foundation Establishment realm. Every other top 100 participant had at least reached core formation. The news spread rapidly, and Wu Ju's name began resounding far and wide. When Lu Baitian brought Guan the promised 6th rank spirit tree, Guan could not help mentioning Wu Jue and asking whether Lu Baitian could help the young man find a good master. Lu Baitian immediately looked at Guan differently. "You can discover a seedling this good before anyone else. Yet you still say you are not suited to be sect master?" He laughed. Guan smiled. "It was only fate. The Tai Xuan Sect has countless geniuses. Finding one of them says nothing about my judgment. It only proves how deep the sect's foundation is and how great its fortune has become." Lu Baitian was very satisfied with the answer. Whether Guan truly meant it or not, those were exactly the kind of words a sect master should know how to say. "As for Wu Jue, I cannot promise you anything. He has already taken Zhou Yu as his master. You must understand that I already broke through enormous opposition just to accept and how. I cannot keep taking every genius in the sect as my personal disciple. The Tai Xuan Sect is not a place where I alone decide everything," Lu Baitian said meaningfully. Zhou Yu was one of the Tai Xuan Sect's pavilion venerables, with authority even above the Elder Hall. Becoming his disciple meant Wu Jue's future was immeasurable. Guan thought again of the foremost true disciple. That person had no master-disciple relationship with Lu Baitian and yet happened to stand directly in his way. It seemed that even accepting disciples within the Tai Xuan Sect involved complicated interests and political relationships. Of course, the deeper reason was still that Lu Baitian was not powerful enough to suppress the 3 great clans by himself. "I am preparing to make a move against the Li family," Lu Baitian continued, "but you can rest assured. I will not harm Li Ya." Hearing that, Guan immediately raised his hands and saluted him. Lu Baitian waved a hand. Once the Golden Ranking tournament ends, the Tai Xuan Sect will enter a period of rapid growth, but hidden dangers still remain. There is still another Epiphyllum Cult branch along the road of the 9 Netherworlds, and there are also people among the 9 Dynasties who want to scheme against us. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I will visit your Medicine Valley less often in the future. Do not become too complacent. Cultivate properly, understand? Toward the end, his tone became helpless. He had already passed the heaven-defying divine art to Guan, yet he still had not seen him achieve anything with it. Guan nodded. "I will manage the Medicine Valley well and make sure the Tai Xuan Sect is never disappointed. Lu Baitian could not help glaring at him. Then he stood and left. Guan quickly rose to see him out. Heavy snow covered the third Medicine Valley. Flakes filled the sky so densely that they seemed determined to bury all of heaven and earth. Lu Baitian's figure soon disappeared into the endless white storm. Time passed quickly. Another new year arrived, and the Golden Ranking Tournament concluded completely one day before the celebration. At dusk, Gue entered Xuan Valley to celebrate with the disciples. Zhen Qin had just returned from the Outer Sect and was discussing the final Golden Ranking standings with everyone. After the tournament, the Tai Xuan Sect had published a book recording the lives and achievements of the top 100 participants. In time, the book itself would become a symbol of authority. First place belonged to Anhao. There had never been any real doubt. Second place, however, did not belong to Lu Xian. It went to Perfected Xuanmiao of Three Pure Ones Mountain. The final battle between Perfected Xuanmiao and Anhao had already become legendary, causing the name of Three Pure Ones Mountain to shake the entire Taichung dynasty. Lu Xian ranked third. He was probably furious about it. Most of the remaining top positions belonged to geniuses from great clans. Among the top 100 alone, members of the Zhou, Gu, and Ji families occupied nearly 30% of the seats. The dominance of the three great clans had been displayed openly for everyone to see. Wu Ju had charged into the top 20, with only Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivation. But he encountered Anhao early, and suffered a crushing defeat. Even so, he had more than proven himself and become a recognized genius. Guan sat down and listened as the disciples excitedly discussed the tournament. He looked interested as well. The disciples even praised him for a while. His own entry into the top 500 made everyone in the valley feel proud. "Master, tomorrow I have to leave on a mission. I may not return for 2 or 3 years." Zhen Qin was sitting beside Gu An when she said this, but his thoughts had already drifted elsewhere. The high-grade medicinal plants in Zhuanshan Cave Abode should be close to maturity by now. 7 days after New Year, Guan entered Zhuanshan Cave Abode at night. He harvested the mature medicinal plants and gained nearly 20,000 years of lifespan before beginning to sow new seeds. After years of careful management, Zhuanshan Cave Abode now contained all kinds of medicinal herbs, every one of them at least 4th rank. They had begun providing him with a steady stream of lifespan. As he worked, Guan began thinking about his next breakthrough. Reaching the Great Ascension Realm had nearly drained the spiritual energy of the North Sea mountain range. For his next breakthrough, he would need to find somewhere with far denser spiritual energy. The next time he advanced, Guan intended to invest at least 5 million years of lifespan. He was extremely curious to see what realm such an investment would carry him into. After finishing the planting, Guan sat at the stone table. He brewed tea for himself and enjoyed the quiet moment while spreading his spiritual sense through the North Sea mountain range to observe what was happening there. For cultivators, the North Sea mountain range was a decent place for training and adventure. Ever since the Golden Ranking Tournament began, cultivators traveling through the region from different dynasties had caused the number of conflicts there to rise significantly. Guan suddenly noticed a battle. One of the people involved immediately caught his attention. Perfected Xuanmiao of Three Pure Ones Mountain. The genius who had surpassed Lu Xian in the Golden Ranking Tournament had left a deep impression on Guan. At this moment, more than a dozen cultivators were surrounding and attacking him. Under the night sky, violent winds tore through the mountains while all kinds of spells rained down, destroying forests and blasting apart the earth. Perfected Xuanmiao held a sword in his right hand and a horsetail whisk in his left. Behind him stood a 3-headed, 6-armed Dharma manifestation. Even while surrounded by divine transformation realm cultivators, he was not at the slightest disadvantage. The 3-headed, 6-armed manifestation contained spiritual power far greater than Perfected Xuanmiao's own, and each of its 6 arms could cast a different spell. Not a bad divine ability. Guan drank his tea while watching the battle with interest. The dozen or so divine transformation realm cultivators were probably not Perfected Xuanmiao's match, but hidden nearby a void-crossing realm expert was waiting for an opportunity to strike. Perfected Xuanmiao's situation did not look good. Guan still had no intention of interfering. Other people's grudges, love, hatred, and revenge had nothing to do with him. Even if Perfected Xuanmiao died here, that would simply mean his fortune was poor. Guan only saved people who were connected to him. After the time it took an incense stick to burn, the hidden void-crossing realm expert finally attacked. And as expected, it was an ambush. One strike shattered Perfected Xuanmiao's Dharma manifestation and sent him flying backward while coughing blood. He crashed into the mountain forest below. Seeing this, the injured divine transformation realm cultivators finally relaxed and immediately began praising the void-crossing realm expert. Just as Guan assumed Perfected Xuanmiao's was certainly going to die, he suddenly sensed something and frowned. a violent gale erupted from the forest where perfected Xuanmiao had fallen. Massive trees were ripped from the earth and hurled into the sky. Perfected Xuanmiao sat cross-legged amid the ruins, surrounded by glowing green runes. Those runes released streams of emerald starlight that gathered above his head, slowly forming an enormous gate. The great gate began to open. An ancient, boundless aura flowed out from within. The expression of the void-crossing realm expert changed drastically. Without hesitation, he turned and fled. "Where do you think you're going?" A weathered voice echoed across heaven and earth.